Good morning.
Morning, everybody.
Morning, David. I'm eating my breakfast. Did you have breakfast? Are you ready for the last day of Ignite? Everybody's had their coffee?
Erin.
Yeah.
Does your daughter play on the Crusaders?
Both of them do, yeah.
I saw you on Sunday, and I was like, I think I know her.
Oh! Yeah. Where were we Sunday? Oh, in Manchester.
Yeah.
I'm like, where was I? Oh, so do you have a daughter that plays too?
Yep. My daughter Haley is on the 5th grade Navy.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my daughter is she's in 4th grade on the white team, I think. Maryland. I think they broke them up differently, right? Like,
or I think the 30 on 30 or whatever they called it. Yeah, she's on UConn, I guess. My daughter.
Oh, okay. What's Haley? I'll have to ask her. They have practice tonight.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Yeah. So my husband usually takes Juliet because I'm not quite done with all my stuff for KW, and then I take Gwen. So my older daughter plays. Her practice is like, what time is tonight? 7:30 to 9:15 or something.
Oh, it's late. How old is she?
She will be 13 in June, so she's 12. Yeah.
No, so is she on the is it 7th grade then? Not.
So she plays on the 7th grade team. Yeah.
Because I heard that the 6th grade team already had to quarantine after one practice. I'm like, oh, that didn't take long.
Oh, really? We've only had, I mean, she's been playing with the Crusaders since last summer, and we've only had one quarantine for her older team the whole time.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of kids were like remote and not at school. And so, we'll see what happens, but,
So now who did you guys play with in the winter?
So they had something called Middle School Academy. So she played because you can't play like AAU can't have real games. Good morning, Susan. During the regular, like they can't compete with the local teams, right? So she played in a club league in town where we live, and then she did the Middle School Academy through the winter, and they just had games against each other, and but it was great. I mean, she's grown so much as a player from Crusaders. We're really happy with the program.
Yeah,
so
this is our first year doing Crusaders. We did BDS last fall, and then we did Nighthawks in the winter. Without having Biddy, it's just not the same anymore. But we're excited, and Michaela seems like a great coach. So
yeah, it's a nice program. Like my Lori coached at UVM, so that's Gwen's coach. They all played in college, so I feel like they run like college drills with the kids, and I'm like, they're too little for that, but they it's good. I just as her confidence, and so this is our first season for our younger one. Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's good. There's a lot of girls on that team because they kind of combine the 4th and 5th grade together. So
yeah, I think when I was talking to Michaela on Monday, I think she said that they're breaking them up a little bit more going forward. So yeah, so if you actually see me out in the wild in human form, please say hello.
No, don't say hello. Don't say. She's a terrible person. Don't do
She's
it.
a basketball mom.
I am.
Oh, okay.
I was staring at her on Sunday. We
staring at her. She was starstruck.
I was like, I know that person. And so of course, like every person does, I grabbed my phone and I Facebook stalked, and I was like, oh yes, that's the same person.
So funny.
Hey, Erin, just a heads up. I did talk to Robert, so we're going to be all set for tomorrow at 9. We have him for 60 minutes just to sort of do a Zoom, Facebook, and command sort of tech hour. If people want to join us again for questions.
That'll be awesome. Yeah, it was so valuable last time.
So I don't know if we want to do that on a local channel or use this one again. I think maybe we use this one again if we can.
Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah.
Because it is Ignite specific.
We're all right, and we're running the week out, so they probably just don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it's being used for anything else.
Yeah.
So I believe with everything that was going on in terms of just scheduling, the region allocated this for Ignite.
Yeah, so we'll remind you guys throughout the morning. Our intention is to have Robert Vincent, our market center tech trainer here in Greater Portsmouth. He is going to join us for 60 minutes and really open forum. He's going to take us through a few things with some Zoom tips, all the buttons you don't know that do exist, help you with some command questions, and then maybe some Facebook stuff too to make sure you guys understand all the ones and zeros. So bring your questions to that for sure. And we will also simulcast that over to the Facebook page as well.
Yeah, I'm going to bring us over to Facebook now. Good morning, Susan Kenyon. We're so excited to have you today.
Thank you. I'm psyched to be here. My favorite topic.
So Tim, if you want to, it's 9 o'clock on the button. If you want to just introduce Susan, and I'll bring us over to Facebook and we can get rocking.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'll wait.
And you have the ability to share. Yes, ma'am. I'm on it. You should be able to share your screen. I feel like I should have a little button that says like Ignite producer.
You should. Should add that to your business cards.
Yeah, right?
Executive producer.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
I put. That's what I put on the quick start. When you're not there, I put executive producer Erin McLaughlin. Yeah. She was too busy to show up. She was in a meeting. She had to take a meeting.
Can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yep.
Yeah, we can see the whole thing. So you just want to go to take it off presenter view. I think you're on presenter
Okay.
view. Maybe unclick that.
Let me see here. Let me put you guys over here. And
So this is contract to close,
No,
right?
No.
no, are we still no?
Yeah. Now I think by clicking, there you go.
Yay, we're getting there.
There's the jam. All right,
Okay.
we're up now, Erin. Awesome. Congratulations. Excellent. Welcome in, everybody. This is ultimately session 18. So we're into session 9 of Elementals. And this is contract to close. We have the blessing of Susan Kenyon from Market Center 463, which I've decided we're no longer Portsmouth. We're Greater Portsmouth now because everybody's adding Greater. I'm Greater Tim Lindsay. Greater Erin McLaughlin is here, and now Greater Susan Kenyon will be teaching this session. She's one of our ALC members. She's a repeat offender when it comes to capping and teaching. Her and her husband run a phenomenal team. Well, her husband pretends that he runs the team. She runs the team. John Kenyon's probably on the phone right now, so you will
Better
notice
be.
Susan. Dr. Kenyon is home teaching because her office, their mega agent office, is so loud because she forces the humans to make their calls, which gives her the ability to do whatever she wants, which is run the team and have 3 hours to spend with us to teach content like this. So we appreciate it. Thank you so much, Susan, for joining us. And again, a reminder for everybody tomorrow from 9 to 10, a quick 60 minutes. We're going to do a tech wrap up tomorrow, 9 o'clock right here. With our Market Center tech trainer, Robert Vincent, to discuss Zoom, Command, and Facebook and get your questions answered before you put a bow on this whole thing. Thank you, Susan.
You are very welcome. And if you guys can't hear me well at any point, let me know and I'll stick my headset on. But yeah, if you guys are here for Ignite Contract to Close, you're in the right spot. This is where you're supposed to be. So we have a great few hours together. And I love teaching contract to close, and I'm just going to preface this with, please participate. And please put your videos on if you can, because I love seeing your faces, and I love being interrupted with questions or comments or anything that you might want to share that other people could take advantage of and learn from. I like teaching because I like learning every day, and I get something every time I teach or every time I attend a class. So great job for just being here and showing up. That's sometimes half the job. Contract to close for me is super important. And my flavor is, we are in production, so I teach from the perspective of being in production. I'm a salesperson, and we're always looking for ways to elevate our business so that we can get more business. And contract to close is such an awesome opportunity for us to be building our repeat and referral business. So I'm going to keep talking about that over the next 3 hours on why that's important, on why it's important for our clients, and why it's important for our co-brokes too. So we're going to talk about co-broke relationships sprinkled in here, because I'm very passionate about being the most professional person at the table, and making this a great experience for everybody involved. And I always like to start with, if you all have not taken the MAPS course, the real estate assistance with Monica Reynolds, take it when it comes around. I took it. My husband and I are partners, and he got his license in 2009. And I was working at Liberty Mutual at the time. And we worked hard knowing that I would want to get into this business with him to make our household a 100% commission household with 3 small children. So if that is something that you're thinking of, you can do it. It's a risk, but it's a calculated risk. Bet on yourself and tool up to get there. So that was a goal for us. And I got my license in 2013. And one of the very first things I did was take that class with Monica Reynolds, so that I could just jump in and start learning right away without always having to ask John, you know, hey, what about this? What about this? And she describes contract to close as the dessert. And I always use this analogy because it's so spot on. And how contracts to close is the dessert is, if you have a very special occasion and you want to celebrate, so you pick a really fancy restaurant, you pick your favorite person that you want to celebrate with, you get dressed up, you get a babysitter, you go out, you have reservations, you have awesome valet parking, the service is fantastic, you order a cocktail and it's just wonderful, everything's relaxed, the atmosphere is beautiful. The food comes out and it's impeccable, delicious. The presentation is gorgeous. You feel so catered to and cared for during your whole meal. And then you get to dessert and they roll out the dessert cart and it looks stunning. And you've been saving up for 2 weeks to have your most calorie filled dessert that you're going to have, and you're going to splurge tonight because you're celebrating and everything's been so great. So you pick your dessert and they bring it out and they put it down in front of you and you're so happy and relaxed and feeling loved and cared for, and there's a fly on the plate. And your face kind of goes, really? That's what contract to close is if you don't do a good job. We all have worked so hard to get the client, we're going to get into the growing your business and running your business slide, which is a great slide. You've done all that work. And now the contract to close is your client's dessert, the best experience that you can give them to feel loved, to feel cared for, to feel heard, to anticipate their every need, to have them sit down at the closing table and be so happy. You want that, all of those things to happen so that you can get the repeat and the referral business from them. If there's a fly on the plate or you mess up contract to close, you reduce the chance of getting repeat and referral business, because what happens is they go out to dinner to celebrate buying a new home or selling their home. And they're sitting down with their family and friends and they say, oh, you just sold your home. How was it? It was so great, but God, the contract to close was so stressful. I don't know. They might not refer you. That's what they're going to think of, no matter how much work you've done for them ahead of time before the contract to close part. So we are here to learn how to nail contract to close. And I'm going to advance our slide right to our growing our business and running our business. So, this is where we're like, congratulations, you're under contract. We've done all of the lead generating for buyers and sellers. We've made our seller presentations and we've gotten our listing agreement signed, which is really challenging in this seller's market, right? There's so few sellers. We've done all that work. We've made great buyer presentations and we've serviced our buyers. We've previewed real estate by going to open houses and showings and inspections and appraisals and however else you're able to get inside a home today. And then we jumped over to the running our business, where we've marketed our listings that we've signed. We've done all the showings and probably written a lot of offers for buyers. It's hard to be a buyer's agent right now. We had to get under contract, right? We had to negotiate our offer and get under contract. We had to get that seller to pick our buyer. And then it's transaction management to closing, and that's what we're focusing on today. How do we make that process of transaction management seamless? You also, at running your business, you get to practice and enhance your skills in vendor management. Super important. Every relationship in our business is important. It's our relationships with our customers and our clients. It's our relationships with our vendors, because we want to build a strategic team for our client. And that includes lenders, and it includes title companies or attorneys. and it includes inspectors and appraisers and anybody else that gets sprinkled into this process. So we're going to talk about that today too, and setting goals and compliance and risk management. So part of being awesome at contract to close is understanding how to be compliant with your contracts, how to reduce risk for yourself and for your clients. Very important. And we've attended trainings and gotten coaching, which is what you're doing today. And we're managing our money, which you guys talked about yesterday, which is always a really great class because, you know, if you're going to be doing this full time and getting a lot of business, if you have no money at the end of the month or the end of the year, all you did was have a good time and not made any money. And your families deserve more than that. So part of our goal is to fund a good life. So we have to manage our money in order to do that. One other thing I just want to make sure that we're also I'm trying to be as generic as possible. I am licensed in New Hampshire and Maine. And I know there's folks on here all throughout the New England region. So from a compliance perspective, always go back to the leadership in your market center so that you're following the compliance rules and regulations and best practices for your state's real estate laws. That's really important. You have leadership there and they're there for you to use them for that. So when it comes to a compliance question that might come in here, we'll revert you back to talking to your coaches and your team leader and your leadership in your specific states and market centers. All right, and we're gonna jump right in to contract to close. So today's agenda is going to be build buyer and seller timelines, best practices for managing the deal, command transaction management, your success list, and your daily success habits. One of the things that we're doing with contract to close is we want to make sure that a deal doesn't fall apart. And how can we avoid that? How can we make sure, you know, that this contract that we worked so hard to gets to the closing table, right? So now we have a new lifespan of 45 to 60 or sometimes 90 days that we have to keep this deal together. And remember, we negotiate contracts twice, once when we go under contract and once typically after inspection. So there's contingencies built into all of our purchase and sales agreements where buyers, typically buyers or sellers, but mostly buyers can back out of a transaction. So our job here is to keep this deal together so that we get to the closing table. That's everybody's goal. Both sides of the house, the buy side and the sell side, regardless of what side you're representing, our goal really should be to get to the closing table. So we will start with building a buyer timeline. You know, I always like to try to, and I know if we're boulders, we don't use that word. So my intent is always to give a great experience for the buyer because, you know, they're excited. I want to know about my buyer. I want to know what excites them. I want to know what kind of person they are. You know, are they somebody that's very analytical and wants every detail? Are they somebody that really does not want any detail? Just give them the bullet points and tell them, you know, what to do next. So I want to look at it from their perspective. A buyer is very excited. So they need you to keep them on task. They need to be reminded of what to do and when to do it, because that's our job. That's the world that we live in. It's not the world that they live in. And what can frequently happen is you give them so much information. You're like throwing up information all over them as soon as they go under contract. And they heard this much of it. They heard, okay, I'm under contract. I'm going to call my mom now. So it's our job to know what the timeline is and to keep everybody on task. And it's our job to make sure dates and deadlines are not missed. That's our job. It's not your client's job to make sure that dates and deadlines aren't missed. It's our job. So that's why we build a buyer timeline. And it starts with an executed contract. So we have negotiated, we're under contract, we're effective. All our dates now start ticking on that executed contract. And then one of the first things that we do is we want to re-engage with the lender. We're going to work with the lender in this. And please do not let this be the first time that you've talked to the lender. This is a strategic partnership, and it's a strategic team. I use those words with my buyers to say, hey, we are building a strategic team here. You always have me, and I drive the bus. I will keep us on track, but we have a lot of work to do with a lot of other people. And I need to be in relationship with everybody on that timeline. So when we're working with the lender here, we should already know who they are. We should already know exactly what our buyers' buying capacity is, what their lending type is, how much on the extra do they have, how tight are they on their money. We need to know, how much paperwork has this buyer already gotten into the lender. If we're doing a lot of coaching with our buyer as we're showing them houses, we hopefully have coached them on getting into partnership with that lender, having that lender giving them their checklist of documents that they're going to need to once they get under contract. A really fantastic scenario is that they already have that first checklist of paperwork turned into their lender, because what that does is kind of leapfrog us past that beginning phase where they're not now starting to do things like collect bank statements and tax returns and all of that kind of stuff that the lender's going to need to get their file going. We want to help that lender as much as possible, because lenders are super busy, just like we are. Right now, our lenders are doing a lot of refis. So we are one file in a big, big stack of files, and we want our file to get as much attention from that lender as we possibly can. How do we do that? We do that by staying in relationship with the lender and helping with that communication between the lender and the buyer, so that the buyer understands when your lender, our lender, is asking you for information, that jumps to the top of your priority list. And one of the ways that might resonate with a buyer is if you tell them that when your lender is asking you for documents, that means that they need them all right away. And if they have 10 things that they need you to get, then they need all 10 of them. So generally they need all 10 of them before they can move your whole file forward. So when you're spilling in a document today, a document tomorrow, nothing, 3 more documents the next day, nothing actually gets worked on until all those documents are turned in most scenarios. So we want all those documents turned in right away. And what I let the buyers know is every day that you delay in getting your lender what they need can be that many days on the end of your closing date. That's what will push out closings, not getting your documents into your lender on time. Because it's a pain. It's a lot of work, and we need to empathize with our buyers with how much work it is for them to actually pull all this paperwork together. I'm going through a purchase and a refi myself right now, and I get it. It's a great experience for me, because I'm like, really? And I know this. I called my lender and I'm like, you really need that today? And then she's like, Susan, you do this for a living. You know I need this today. So we need to kind of, be sympathetic to our buyers and let them know we understand that this is a lot of work. Not everyone's great at keeping their paperwork organized. But if you don't want to delay on the back end, you need to get it in today. That's how we work with our lender. We also want to let them know that, they own the lending portion of this transaction management. We own the purchase and sales end of this transaction management. So they can't do things that would disrupt our purchase and sales agreement, like changing lending types during the process. They might want to say, hey, I know I started off conventional, but I realize now this buyer now fits into an FHA program. We can't just be changing things like that, because the lender wants to do the best that they can for the buyer, but we have to keep everybody in contract. and we have to keep everybody in relationship. So we're constantly communicating those pieces of things to our lender. And we're also making sure that the lender understands the pieces of the purchase and sales agreement that are about the real estate being transferred, that are outside of the lending piece, so that they are staying in line with our goals for this purchase and sales agreement. Does that make sense? Or does anyone have any questions on that? Ask a question. It gives me a chance to have a little bit of my caffeine.
I
think it makes sense. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Somebody else.
Hi, Ryan. No, I think it's more of an aha. I like that you're kind of segregating that they own the lending. You have to kind of imply that they need to really be on top of that while you're working really hard on keeping the contract together. That's helpful. Just set.
Yeah, awesome. How about you, Ryan? Did you have something?
I was going to say that conceptually it makes sense. I think it's a little difficult to speak a little sort of in abstraction without having a transaction to attach it to, and so it's a little bit difficult from that aspect, but it makes sense. You know, it's basically just I get it. But then when we go through a transaction, I imagine it's going to be like, oh, that's what we were talking about. You know,
Exactly. Yeah, totally. You know what will help you with that is read your contract more. Long before going into an under agreement, a transaction, read the finance sections of your purchase and sales agreement line by line, and break them down to minutia, because words and language are important when we're speaking, but the written language, what's written in that contract, is what counts. So having a clear understanding of what a contingency is that a seller can use against your buyer is very important. And lenders don't understand that. They don't actually read that whole section of the purchase and sales agreement, because their job is to get a lending file through. It's not to comb through and understand every line of the purchase and sales agreement. And I know for our contracts in, I'll use New Hampshire, for example, our section on financing on the purchase and sales is over a whole page long. So I really have to understand how, from a buyer perspective, I have to understand how the buyer has to meet the deadlines and how a seller could get out of a contract if I don't. Because you could be coming up against a very savvy co-broke. And if your co-broke representing the seller might have another offer, a backup offer, something that they might like to trump your offer with, if it's a lot better, they could use something in there that could kick you out of a contract. And man, you don't want that phone call. That's not a good phone call to get. So what we're doing is we're kind of, making sure that doesn't happen. So I would encourage you guys to take out your purchase and sales agreements and read them line by line. Oops. Sorry about that. Read them line by line. And if you have questions on them, ask your leadership, ask for, I don't know if you guys all have contract to close. Are you guys seeing that pop up? There we go. If you have questions on the contract to close, ask for a contracts class, or ask for somebody that has, a lot of experience to go over a purchase and sales agreement with you. I've had somebody from our market center do that with me. They called me and said, I am struggling with the purchase and sales agreement. You have an hour that you can go over that with me. And I'm happy to do that. So what I love about Keller Williams and why I will never leave is that you have support around you. Sometimes all you have to do is be the person that asks for help. Okay. But this piece here, I'm telling you, if you guys nail this, you're going to impress your lender, and they're going to want to work on your files more than other agents that that don't know their contracts, that don't partner with them. And it will help your buyer. And remember, buyers, they could be, it used to be 5 to 7 years that buyers would be in the market again. It's more like 3 to 5 right now. So I'm working on this contract, but I'm also working on making sure that they're super happy with me, that in that 3 to 5, I'm their lady. They should be coming to me because they know how much I've protected them. Plus, I love my lenders. Our motto for our business is relationship, service, results. And we take that to heart in every relationship in our business. And that includes our lenders and all our other vendor alliances that we have. We have to stay in relationship all the time with all of those people. And it's okay also to ask questions. As a newer agent, if you have a really rock solid lender, that lender will teach you so much about contract to close from their perspective that will help you with working with your clients. I know that when my husband John got into this business, he partnered with a lender that we're still in partnership with. And he really credits her to helping him with starting to start his business and grow his business, because they acted as partners all of the time and worked on education and around this piece of it. Okay, so hi.
It's Erin. We did have a question about where to find your forms in the chat. So I think that's going to be dependent on your state and your brokerage, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the answer that I had put. I didn't know if you had any more information on that.
I would definitely go to your leadership. I know for us, we have access to that through command, but I don't know how your commands are all set up. If you're using .loop, I mean, we have things that our market center sets up for us.
Yeah.
But I don't know, how that works for each individual state.
Yeah, I don't think it's the same everywhere. So definitely talk to your coaches and your TLs and your leadership in your office. So if anybody else is wondering, she's talking about all these forms, where to find them. It could be different depending on your office.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you what is a good, really high-tech tool that you can use. Oh. Three-ring binder.
I knew you were going to say that. I was holding my breath a little though.
Three-ring binder. I still have a contracts 3-ring binder, and I sometimes do contracts. But when I started, we offered then, and our market center still offers, and I'm grateful for it, weekly contracts class. And I would have my contracts in there, and we would go through them one by one. And then when we were done, we would just start at the beginning, and that's still how we do it. And I would have a red pen, and I would write on the same one over and over again. So when we got to purchase and sales, I would just flip to my purchase and sales, and I would write new notes on it if I had something new to add. And then when I sat down to write my first offers, I had my own guidebook here of what to do and notes that I had made, because let's face it, I've been in the business a long time. I still get excited every time I write an offer. I love writing offers. I get excited every time someone goes under contract. I don't want to forget anything. So I still have my checklist to go through. So the 3-ring binder can be really helpful. If it's not as old as that, I'm older than probably a lot of you. And you have something more online or technology driven that you want to use. Whatever it is fine, but just have something to constantly be reminding you of your contracts that is separate from all of your other education material that you use, so that when you need to reference contract stuff, you have a place to go that's really quick and easy and at your fingertips.
Great.
And yeah, DocuSign, Maine uses DocuSign and Zip Forms. So I don't know what Mass and Rhode Island and Connect use, but I'm sure they have something for you. Thank you for keeping an eye on the chat. And the next thing is the home inspection for a buyer timeline. And I love home inspections. I still do. Not everybody loves them. They're long. They can be a little tedious, but you learn a lot. So when we had that slide on previewing property, I think the best way to preview property is to go to home inspections. You learn so much about a house or houses or heating systems or plumbing or, things from a home maintenance perspective from a home inspection. So please go to the home inspection to start. you should always go to the home inspection with your buyer. You should always encourage your buyer to go to the home inspection. Some buyers, you know, I've had some buyers that don't go to the home inspection. That doesn't give me a pass for not going to the home inspection. I go to everything. I get paid well for what I do. I need to show up. The home inspection, you know, build relationships with your home inspectors in your area. Find the ones that work best with you. I like home inspection companies and home inspectors that are not alarmists. Their job is to go in and to report the condition of the home. And, you know, one thing that you can throw out to your buyer, you know, so when we get to the home inspection portion from a buyer timeline, I've already done some coaching with my buyers on this part of the process, right? So if we're, you know, if we're buying anything other than new construction, you're buying a used home. There's going to be issues that come up. We want to warn them that a home inspection is to point out every problem with the house. A home inspection is not to go through and say, oh my God, you're right, that kitchen is so gorgeous, or oh my goodness, you could set up a playroom in there, or anything like that. Their job is to point out all the problems in the house. So a home inspection report can look really scary. It can look very overwhelming. It could give a lot of stress to a buyer. So my perspective is that I don't want them to feel that way. I want them to feel like this is such a benefit to them because they're learning about the property that they're going to be buying. They're learning, first off, we want to know if there's any major defects that haven't been disclosed. That we definitely want to know. And you need to be there to hear about these defects and maybe ask more questions from the home inspector.
Susan, does the home inspector, should you be going around with the home inspector or should you just stand back? Do they mind if you're sort of right over their shoulder?
So everyone has differing opinions on that. I'm there. I'm right there. I follow them around. I ask questions. Sometimes I know the answer to the questions that I've asked, but I don't think my buyer does. But it's not my job to tell them how to maintain their heating system or whether or not they can add AC or something like that. But I might know that that's going to be important to them. So I can ask questions on their behalf and let the home inspector be the heavy on answering that.
Okay.
And, you know,
Okay.
everything's all in your delivery, right? So follow them around, be friendly. Don't be an alarmist. You know what? Everything can be fixed. You know, if something's a game changer and you're going to get out of the contract, then we do that if that's what the buyer really wants to do. But if something comes up in the home inspection that there could be a remedy for, and they love this house, then we help them with that. If it's, you know, I also let my buyers know that part of the job of the home inspection is that we want to give you a honey-do list for soon, you know, as soon as you move in. We don't give the seller a honey-do list with our inspection response, right? That's not what we do. But we want you to know that when you buy a house, you're now going to have to start doing some home maintenance. And when you go to home inspection, the home inspector will help you with that. They might say, you know what, you might want to address this sometime within the next 5 years. Or this is kind of a 10-year out thing, but it helps them build a home maintenance timeline. So I can help with navigating that with buyers, like missing outlet covers are not major things, or this is like a $40 part at Home Depot, or, you know, ask the home inspector, might know if you can upgrade to this or that or whatever. I might be looking at service records on furnaces. What I want to do is keep everyone's temperaments even keeled. I don't want temperaments to go up here. Because what happens if they bring their parents? I mean, oh my gosh, it's like the kiss of death, right? People bring their parents to home inspections. I immediately go to my car, take a couple Advil, then I go back because I'm anticipating a potential headache. But I can't let my buyer know that. Now I have another person I need to build a relationship with. So the home inspection part, have you guys been through home inspections? Are you nervous about them? No.
Just my own personal one.
Was it scary?
A little bit at the time, yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. And so we have to always remember, like, that's what our buyers are going through, right? So before we get to the home inspection, we're arming them with, you know, what they can expect, what they should be wanting to get out of this. They're paying good money for it. We want them to, I want my buyers to learn about the home. I want them to learn about how they're going to maintain it. I want them to have that, you know, build their own list of repairs that they're going to have to do. And I want to know if there's a major defect that wasn't disclosed. I want to know for a couple reasons. Is it something I should have picked up on when we were at the showing? Or is it a latent defect that I wouldn't have seen? And then you always want to be the, you know, the person that has solutions. If is there mold and we didn't see it? You know, mold can be a dirty word, but can mold be remedied? Absolutely. Be the source of the source. Have your list going of, okay, there was mold, there was this, there was that. And now I already know who my next people are that I'm going to reach out to on trying to find a solution for my buyer should they want to move forward.
Sue, I have a quick question. New constructions, technically you really don't have to have a home inspection, but 10 years ago, I bought my home and it was new construction. And I actually, my agent at the time was really, I hate to use the word pushy, but he was trying to gear me towards the way of not having a home inspection. And even though it was a new construction, I was a little bit adamant about having a home inspection just to rule out any possibilities. And it's a good thing that I did because it was actually my inspector found a problem with the furnace that it could potentially cause some major issues when it was installed. So is it something that maybe we should just, you know, make a recommendation and just kind of just let them make the decision from there on a new construction?
Yeah, I mean, some market centers offer new construction classes because new construction is a lot of work. And I think there is a trend towards doing inspections on new construction that never used to be there. But I am seeing more and more people do that. The thing with a scenario like that is make sure before you go under agreement with a new construction that you know what the builder will and will not allow. So some new construction purchase and sales agreements, the builder insists on using theirs instead of a state form. And they're lengthy. And a lot of buyers, when you send a form over to them, they're like, click, 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 done. They don't know what they're clicking. So you really have to read every line in that, in a new, if it's a state form, that if it's not a state form, you have to know what they're signing. Sometimes a new construction contract, if it's the builder's contract, they might tell you who you can use for an attorney or a title company. They might have non-refundable language in there, that's a whole different class. But know what your options are. And some people do bring in an inspector for a new construction. There's no solid, you have to do it this way answer.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, Matt.
Can you speak to updating the disclosures after inspection?
So I'm going to really push back and say that should probably go back to your market center because we should be continuing to disclose throughout the whole process. How that's done from an updating disclosure forms is a state regulation. You know, in Maine, I can write as an agent on a property disclosure. In New Hampshire, I cannot write on write on that disclosure. Should we be continuing to let buyers know about defects or major things that are happening between going under contract and closing if something major happens to that property? Yeah, we should know that. That's staying in relationship with your co-broke will most likely get you that phone call. If you're snarky to work with, you might not get that phone call. So there's lots of reasons why you need to get along with the other agents that you're working with. But ask your leadership so that you're making sure that from an updating disclosures and contracts and addendums that you're doing it in a way that you're very compliant. Okay. After home inspection, they have home insurance listed here. So, when we put somebody under contract, I'm already pushing that home insurance button with my buyer. I already want them to be making those phone calls, because this gets to be like, this is a very busy timeline for your buyer, and they're going to get caught up in all the other things that they have to do. Like, are they selling a home before they buy this home? Are they in a rental that they have to get out of? Have they started packing? They're doing all this paperwork with their lender. I don't want the insurance part to wait until the last minute, because you want to know what can delay a closing? Not having your insurance binder. For some reason, that darn insurance binder can be the very last thing that they do, when it can be one of the first things that they do. So the home insurance is placed here on the timeline. I don't mind it here, because I like to get past the inspection as fast as I can, so that we can, that's a big nugget to pass by on a purchase and sales agreement. Because then you can kind of focus on everything else, because that's the second negotiation part, right, in a contract. So if you have to negotiate on something big, or you want to get past that, or if everything's great and you're just moving forward, it's great to check that box. Another thing that typically happens on here is, after the home inspection, that's when I have my lender pull the order for appraisal and the title company. I'm in a title state. If you're an attorney state, it's different. But I usually have them hold off on appraisal, the lender hold off on appraisal till we're past inspection, because the buyer pays for that when it's ordered. And that could range anywhere from $550 to $800, depending on what they're buying. And depending on, what your particular marketplace is looking like. So I don't want them to spend that money until I know we're past inspections. So I would kind of put appraisal on that timeline, because the appraisals right now are a really big piece to this contract in the market that we're in. And one of the reasons it's so important is, if our market is looking like people are paying at the very top of the market right now, we're seeing people paying over asking price by sometimes tens and tens of thousands of dollars. We need those properties to appraise. So the appraisal piece is important, and we kind of want to get past that too. Appraisers are also super busy. So another thing that could delay the closing is not having that appraisal report back in time. So the appraisal has to happen, then it has to get turned in to the lender, and then that lender has to vet out that appraisal. So it has to go through underwriting and has to get approved. And, sometimes there could be conditions on an appraisal, like something in the house has to be fixed, especially depending on what type of lending that you have. So if you have an FHA appraiser or a VA appraiser, they're going to be looking for things in that appraisal that a conventional appraiser is not going to be looking for. And if they have to go back to the seller and work out how we're going to add a railing or get a window replaced, or get something corrected on the property, that work has to be done. And then the appraiser has to go back out, and then they have to report back to the lender, and then the lender has to approve that as well. So we need to keep this timeline moving.
I'm sorry if you already said this, but on this timeline, where would you see the appraising being done?
I typically would put it after the home inspection, because I don't like to have an appraisal happen until I know we're past inspections.
Okay, and then home insurance would be after the appraisal?
It could be around the same time.
Because you'd want to know, what you're insuring.
Yeah, you should know what you're insuring anyway. I mean, you can click that domino over at the beginning. The buyer's not paying for anything for that home insurance until the closing table.
Okay.
So I'm not as worried about that. I mostly want to keep reminding my buyer that they have to get it. And really, I'm doing this to help the lender as well, because the lender is typically going to need an insurance binder in order to close this transaction. I don't need one to close the transaction. They need one to lend on the property typically. So getting it done sooner rather than later, at least getting that quote and getting the information, and the lender has that, they can build that into the lender's information that they need. And then we can kind of just move forward and, close the door on that and move forward with something else.
Excuse me, does the lender, at that point, did the lender and the insurance company talk to each other? Who communicates?
So the lender should have given, this should be one of the things on the list that the lender gives the buyer, that they're going to need insurance. But the buyer has to reach out to their own insurance person. You can be the source of the source and provide them with some contacts for home insurance so that they can call some buyer, which I typically will do even if they don't need it. It's in my canned email stuff that they get. But I'm also verbally checking in with them, because remember, they have so many things to do. They forget. They went under contract. You told them that they're going to need insurance. They probably forgot by the time you got to home inspection. It's a very good chance that that has gotten swept aside because it doesn't seem like a big deal to them. So I generally will just kind of make sure that that's continuing to happen. Also, if you're like, if the property is at all near any type of water where there could be a flood issue and there could be flood insurance, those premiums can get high. You want to head those kind of issues off sooner rather than later. Insurance brokers will run what's called a clue report, and it will talk about, the clue report will return back to them information on any claims that have been made on that property, which could impact their premium. Now, that's not my area, and part of my contract is that I'm your real estate agent. If you need help in all these other areas, I can point you in those directions. This is that time where you're pointing them in that direction to have them get that information done. The general time frame someone's asking, Emma, for contract to close, if you're cash, you used to be able to do it in 2 weeks, but right now lenders are, title companies and attorneys are really busy. So I'm generally seeing cash deals close in 3 weeks. And then if there's financing involved, it could be 45 to 60. And if it's new construction, it could be a lot longer than that. It could even be pushed out to 90 if there's some other things that have to happen, or maybe that's just what, that could have been something that worked better for the seller. If you had a longer close, that could have been something that might have won you the contract, right? If you know that they really don't want to close until August and you had the flexibility to wait for that. So there's a lot of different moving pieces on how long the time frame is, but generally I would say 30 to 60 days. Closer to 45 to 60 in how busy, if there's lending, because of how busy lenders are. If you want to close faster, then you coach your buyer on having their documents to their lender immediately. That's what will get you to close earlier rather than later.
Susan?
Hi.
Hi. Is there a list of, it seems like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? So it's like, is there a list that says, you're going to do your inspection, then you're going to do your appraisal, then you're going to do the home insurance, and you're going to be. It just seems like, is there a list that we can follow?
Yeah, you should be building that, because you might want to build in things that are custom to you. I'm an over communicator in contract to close because it's so important to me. But checklists are your friend. And you can build those into a smart plan in Command. You can build that into an Excel spreadsheet. You can build that into your Google Calendar. You can have a 3-ring binder. Whatever works for you. I also am still somewhat of a paper person. I have all my buyers have a green folder and all my sellers have a red folder.
Oh.
So I have checklists right in the inside cover of each folder. Everybody gets one. As soon as you are signed a client, you get a folder. And I have a checklist in there just for being a client. And I have a checklist in there just for under contract. And Erin, yes, that there are checklists in Command and you can customize them. So I would encourage you guys to do that. So when you're setting up your day, you know, I know way back, the day in the life of the agent, we talked about how to set up your day where you're lead generating in the morning and you may be working on your business in the afternoon or in the evening. That's when you can work on things like checklists and talk to agents that you know in your market center and find out what they're doing. And then follow that and kind of manipulate that to how you like it. Somebody else says the KW app has a guideline for your clients that we can follow, which is very helpful. Yep, absolutely. You can also have home warranty on your timeline. I don't know, anyone familiar with home warranties? I used to do them more in a buyer's market than a seller's market, but there is something that buyers can get, which is a home warranty. And it's through a third party. The one that's coming to my mind is Home Warranty of America. And you purchase a home warranty and you purchase them on different levels. And they basically cover major systems within the house. So when it was a buyer's market, I used home warranties with my sellers. And I had them offer a home warranty to the buyer as a way to try to attract more buyers to that property when there were, you know, way more buyers and when there were way more sellers than there were buyers, that they could, you know, maybe the house is 25 years old and the furnace is original but they've maintained it every year and it's running great. And they're like, I'm not replacing it. It runs really great. You could offer a home warranty to help ease the mind of the buyer and the buyer's parents that these systems will be protected during the home warranty period. Prices, don't quote me, but they used to be in the range of like $500 to $1,000, depending on what you were buying. So that is something that you can look into. It's on the timeline, and I'm glad that they kept it on here because we may see things like that come around again when there's a shift in the market. And it's a tool just to have in there that you might want to pull out. I haven't pulled out a home warranty option in a while, but I'm sure that I will again because I plan on doing this for a long time.
Susan, I know that I've asked a couple of times during this course, home warranties are very, very common in Florida. Very common with the condos down there. A lot of people buy it, and it seems like they're more user-friendly down there than they are up here for some reason. But do you have any bad experiences with home warranties up here? Because I'm actually thinking of getting one for myself, so.
I have not. Home Warranty of America has been easy for me to use. I just reach out to them. They get all of the pertinent information that they need on the buyer and the seller and the property. I put them in touch with the title company. They get paid right at closing. No one has to write a check up front. They have all the paperwork ready to go at closing.
Oh, okay.
And then it keeps me out of it. I'm the source of the source, right? I want
Right.
to offer value, but I don't really want to do any work in that area. I have enough work to do.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So if my buyer wants to waive the home inspection when we make an offer, can they still purchase a home warranty?
Yes, one has nothing to do with the other.
Okay.
Okay. One has nothing to do with the other. And that's a really big conversation on whether they want, people wanting to not do a home inspection. There is a great form through HUD, I believe, on home inspections for buyers. If for some reason a buyer is going to waive a home inspection, please just get that you advise them to do one in writing, in an email, something and they acknowledge that. Thank you for advising me. And I ask them that. I have had buyers waive them in this market. And then I just say, that's totally your prerogative. I'm just going to send you an email saying that I advise you it's in your benefit to get one. If you could please acknowledge that you've been advised, but you still want to move forward without a home inspection so that I can keep that in my records. I'm just very upfront about what I'm doing there. And then I put that right in, I'm still a dot looper. I still put that in my dot loop and then I transfer and put that over into my opportunity. So I always have a record of it. because when there's a problem, it's always our fault. And you're typically going to be the first person that gets called. And they're going to forget that they waived that. Okay. And so we get through all of that stuff, and then we get to the closing table, which is super fun. I love that part of it. I am hoping that we're getting back to getting away from curbside closings and back to around the closing table. One of the benefits of keeping this a very professional, solid, easy process for the buyer and for the co-broke is that when you get to the closing table, the buyers and sellers are friendly with each other. There's information that the seller wants to pass over to the buyer. It's been their home. It's business for us, but it's personal for them. And there's things that they can tell the buyer that I don't know, like, you know, every spring I do this to my outside water spigot, or I don't know, some stuff like that. Or there's a great landscaper in the neighborhood who does like 50% of the homes in here. Here's their number. They've done a great job for me. Stuff like that. So the closing table can be really fun. And I also make the closing table a fun place to be. So I have a big screen TV in my closing conference room. I have the listing photos running on that so they can see the pictures running of the home that they're buying, and they love that. I always have people sit so that the seller's back is to that, because I've had sellers on the other side and start crying because they're sad because they've been in the house for 20 years. So I strategically place people when I invite them into my office. I nicely say, oh, blah, 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 here, sit right over here. And the sellers come in. Very nice to see you again. Here, why don't you have a seat over here? I have music playing. I make sure my office smells nice. I have refreshments on the table. I make this the dessert, the closing table. I want them to feel happy. I have their gift ready for them. And yes, we are that one industry that we buy gifts for people for the work that we've done for them. We are not doctors and lawyers where we don't get where, you know, they don't expect a gift from, you know, if you go to the doctor, you don't expect the doctor to give you a gift, but we need to gift our clients. And this isn't anywhere in my material, but I do feel strongly about it. People expect gifts. It's another way that you're giving them a great experience at the end, and it will come back to you. Now, there's going to be a whole bunch of conversation on what can I write off? What can I not write off? Go to your tax person and they will let you know what you can and cannot write off. And if you have to buy a gift that you can't write off, buy it anyway. It will come back to you. It will come back to you in how they feel when they leave. It will come back to you in repeat and referral business. Okay. Are we all good on building a buyer timeline? Okay.
What kind of gift can we give?
You know, I like to be as individual about that as I can. And at the same time, I have a stack of them ready to go at any given time. So if during the, you know, you learn a lot about your buyer sometimes during the process. If there's something I know they're going to need for the house, if they're going to have to do a lot of work, I could get them something geared towards that. If it's springtime and they have a beautiful yard, I've shown up with flowers and, you know, plants that they can plant. If they've let me know how much they're looking forward to gardening, you can do something like that. But then offer to bring it to them, because buyers typically are going to show up at the closing with their cars jam-packed and have no room for a big bush to plant. So then you offer to, you know, follow them back over. If it can, you know, champagne, people do that. You can put together a personalized gift basket. If you know they're sports people, you can get them sports oriented, you know, something that is personal. And it's, in my opinion, it's better to have something that's going to stay in the house that they see frequently that will remind them of you. A bottle of wine is not going to do that. And if you're going to give them wine, you should maybe try to ask leading questions while you're meeting with them to make sure that they drink, because you don't want that to backfire on you if they don't drink. If they have little kids, you could bring a little gift basket for them, because people love it when you're not, if they're big pet people, huge opportunity. Oh my God, they love my pet, blah, 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 stuff like that. A space heater makes a great housewarming gift. Yeah, that's a good one. So there's lots of areas that you can go to in that. I think just that you showed that you cared, and who doesn't like to get a gift?
Could give a Home Depot gift card too, probably. They can buy stuff for their home.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, seller timeline. Super fun. So we have an accepted offer here, just like before. Now we have to prepare sellers in a different way than we have prepared our buyers. So the first thing on here is the accepted offer. So just like with the buyers, the seller, you know, when they get an offer, they're looking at the line that has the amount in it. Really, that's what they're looking at. They don't necessarily look at all the other pieces. So hopefully, you know, you have gone through every line of the offer and the contract with them so that they know what they're getting into. Now you're under contract and we have to prepare them for what's happening. And one of the biggest stressors for a seller is getting through inspections. So you want to prepare them for them. The seller has to have the house ready for an inspection. That means that the buyer has the right to have the inspection really whenever they want to have it. Let the buyer pick when they want to have it, because now we need to keep the buyer and seller happy with each other. We want them to, you know, start detaching from the house. So let them know the buyer is going to be calling, and when they let them know the inspection is going to happen, I'll be there, and it's going to be, you know, could be a couple hours long. Prepare them for that. If they have kids and pets or working from home, they have to be prepared that they should be leaving the house for that. Everything has to be accessible in the house. So if your seller has a lot of stuff in the house, you need to have prepared them and then re-prepare them now, especially the basement, right? If there's a bunch of stuff in the basement, prepare them. The inspector's going to need to see all the walls down here. Pull your stuff away from the walls. They're going to need to have access to all of your systems. If there's a pull down attic, they're going in there. If it's a scuttle hole that they have to get through a closet, I don't want to touch their clothes. Have them do that. The inspector's going to go up in that scuttle hole. They have to check for moisture and mold.
So in your experience, Susan, does the seller stick around for an inspection?
No.
They don't. They get out.
They get out. I mean, I have had one here and there, but it's generally, this is for the buyer. This is the time for the buyer to go in with their inspector. They're looking at the house in a much deeper dive than they did for the showing. Is it going to happen that you're going to have a seller that won't leave? You're going to have to work with that when that happens. But in general, no. But so we want them to have the house ready when we show up to unlock the door, right? So if they have to take clothes out of a closet so that someone can get to that scuttle hole, or empty and move stuff out of the basement, or move any furniture or whatever, that's, you know, have them do that. We shouldn't be doing that. I don't want to be touching people's stuff at a home inspection.
Are we asking the agent to tell their clients that, or?
Well, we're working with the seller timeline here.
If we were on the buyer side, I mean.
If we were on the buyer side and we went through that showing and you witnessed and could see that all of that stuff was there, then absolutely, you need to let them know that. And I've had to do that. Basements can be a particular one. Like, we need to see all 4 walls in this basement. We need to be able to walk around the parameter. And, you know, everyone opens up closets during showings. So if they're jam-packed, let them know that we're going to need to have access to that stuff. So, and that's great service to your buyer too. Like if you have the buyer in that scenario, that you're preparing for that. And also remember, you know, sellers are under a lot of stress. So over communicating with them here is going to help them get through that. I'm also coaching when I'm building when I have the seller, I'm coaching that buyer's agent. that before we even went under contract, I'm reminding them that the inspections are for significant issues and defects. They're not for a honeydew list. So I'm kind of over communicating and setting expectations, especially for my seller in this time, in this particular timeline of what's going to happen. And the sooner that we can, and we don't want to delay in allowing a buyer to get into their home inspection, because we want to get past this stressor as fast as we can, and move on in the contract.
Susan, you made the point about sellers and whether they should be out of the building or not. I think there's a determination, and obviously everybody needs to use their best judgment for this. If it's an elderly seller and they simply, it's a massive inconvenience for them to be out of the property. We've had older couples that just sat on the deck because they weren't just going to head out. But if you've got a seller like, no, I want to be here for this, I refuse to not be in the house, like that's a different conversation. And to Susan's point, making sure the buyer's agent, who might need some education around that, is clear that you should have, the ability to walk around the house and have conversations with your home inspector about concerns and red flags, right? Not honeydew list issues. And the other thing, you made the point about being able to see all the walls and the maybe some cracks in the foundation downstairs, outlets being accessible, right? They're going to want to be able to just get to stuff. So the easier you can make it, is a great time, as Susan said, for your sellers to really start to behave like they're moving, right? And getting stuff, away from walls and out of closets. Yes, the classic New England scuttle hole in the closet is. It should be a game show unto itself, right? Especially if your inspector is, buoyant. He's like spraying Pam on his hips to get into the scuttle hole. Yeah, unless he brought his assistant Jerry, who's about 110 pounds soaking wet.
Yeah.
So yeah, Susan makes a great point. Coaching that growing agent on the other side that might not realize that usually the seller exits the property, so you have the ability to have a home inspection without worrying about them being in the way or them overhearing stuff. Or the agent's obviously allowed to be there, but the seller should be gone for the most part.
They should be. And you know what? This is part of when you're getting that seller to sign their listing agreement. You start talking about this stuff. This is what's going to happen next. We're going to market your property. We're going to list your property. We're going to show your property. We're going to negotiate offers. There's going to be a home inspection. So what the home inspection is going to look like is they're going to need access to all these places. They're going to need to go into the scuttle hole. When's the last time you were up there? Let's go up there before we list your property, because we can head off problems. And that's part of our job, is to consult with your seller to head off these issues. If we know that a buyer is going to be looking at these things, we should be looking at them before we go live.
Yeah, Susan, we normally only go through the scuttle hole to feed the raccoons every other week. Every other week. Yeah. We actually had a deal going on. I don't know what the insurance company was, but there was that ad with the insurance company with the family of raccoons up in the attic. And I had a deal going on where we found we walked into an REO and you could hear it was like a zoo running around upstairs. And they're like, "What's that? Is this place haunted?" I'm like, "No, it's inhabited. It's not haunted."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a full petting zoo upstairs in the attic. Yeah.
Not fun.
Needless to say, we did not move forward on that property.
Not fun. But you know what? If you want to take some stress away from your seller, you do these things before you go live, because really there's so much that you can do prior to contract to close from a seller perspective, so that the contract to close is easier and less stressful. One of them is making sure you know about all the problems in the house. If a home inspector came through my house, he's going to tell me stuff that I don't know, because they look at it from a different lens. Most sellers don't go up there to their scuttle holes regularly to check on stuff. This is the time where you let them know you need to go up there. What does it look like up there? When's the last time you were up there?
That outlet doesn't work. Yeah, that's the one we don't use. Just like all those things.
Here's my electrician list. Go call one.
Yes, right.
Go call one. Have them be prepared. If you prepare them up front for the inspection and what's going to happen, and you let them know that after you go under contract, the buyer's going to need access to the house for a couple of hours for their inspection. So you're going to need to find something to do. You're letting them know ahead of time. You're going to need to be gone. So this isn't the first time on the seller timeline that they're hearing that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm just going to say this, and sometimes it's a wormhole, but pre-inspect your property. get a home inspector there before you go live. You can do that. It will save a lot of headaches. You'll learn a lot more about the house. Your seller can fix stuff. You can disclose more. And then that's another whole conversation for another time. I'm happy to have it if anybody wants to reach out to me on the side, but I do sometimes squirrel down that. But I feel like I would be remiss in saying and not telling you guys that that is an option. And we do it all the time. And it makes contract to close so much easier.
Well, it's an opportunity for your seller to spend hundreds to save thousands.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just, and you could treat it the same way as if you had a client who was looking into buying an REO, which are typically listed as sold as is, you know, we still invite them to obviously get the home inspection before we make the offer, because there's no chance to renegotiate after the fact. And you're typically only doing the home inspection for your informational purposes. So if your seller is able to do it and then eradicate some of these things that would be on this massive list, right? Because we know air mitigation for radon on paper is about $1,100 or $1,200, right, Susan? But if the buyer asks for it, it's $38,000, right?
Yes.
You know, the roof needed to be repaired, $28,000 if you get a local quote. If the buyer wants it done, $75,000. So to spend a little bit of money to garner some information, to you know, just to take some ammunition out of the gun, so people aren't walking in fully loaded with all of these concerns. And they're just some things that maybe they're just delayed management of the property, things that we were putting off, but we're happy to, because, oh, we live here, we'll get to that later. It's not the biggest rock. It's not the biggest rock for us right now. Braces, college, our next car. You know, we're not worried about the gutters. They don't look that bad. They haven't fallen off yet, right?
We learned to live with a lot with our house and we stopped seeing it, but the new buyer is going to see all of that.
Yep.
And it also keeps you on track if you do that pre-home inspection and your seller has the opportunity to fix things. It also helps you keep your contract dates in line, because if something is just discovered, that contractors are busy, they're hard to get, they might have to have stuff done, you know, this stuff might have to be done before closing. If you can't get somebody in there to fix it, you could be delaying closing. And now you're not making contract to close the dessert, people. You've got to make it as good as possible. Preparing to be under contract to close starts when you get your listing agreement signed, by preparing them for this eventual outcome. Because if you have a listing and you're not prepared to be under contract, then your mind isn't in the right place. You should already be preparing them to be under contract.
Yeah.
Susan, I just wanted to add, in this market of people waiving inspections, we are hearing this. I actually happen to be in a networking group with an inspector, and she was mentioning that she actually offers a service called a maintenance inspection. And I didn't even realize that that was a service that inspectors offer, and that she said that, you know, really she's trying to educate realtors to know that that is a service that pretty much all inspectors offer. So if you are in a situation where your buyer is waiving an inspection, they can purchase the home and then call a home inspector and have what's called a maintenance inspection, and get a list, that same report that they get, and learn about the home, and then also get a timeline of when, and recommendations of what needs to be fixed or repaired first. So I just thought that was a really unique opportunity and offering that I hadn't heard of.
Can they bring the like the home inspection with them at the when they're previewing the home, like when they're privately previewing the home, so they can like take a look quickly what's need to be done maybe?
Oh, no, this would be like, you know, and we are not recommending, we never recommend that a buyer waive inspection, right? That's their choice to do that. But if that's a positioning item that they want to put in their offer to waive inspection, I think for some people they buy the property and they're like, okay, now we got to figure out if there's stuff going on. You can actually still have the same type of inspection, but it's after you own the property. So I just thought that was a unique service that we probably all should be learning about. So
yep, absolutely. I've never heard of that one. Thanks for that. That could be a great closing gift if you're buying that.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Somebody did ask who pays for the pre-inspection. So if it's a home inspection after you're under contract, the buyer pays for that. If it's before you list and you're pre-inspecting, the seller pays for that. I have paid for that. It all depends on, you know, your marketing, it all depends. Every listing agreement's different. But you know, I just went live on a property and I paid for the pre-home inspection. So it all depends. It all depends.
Well, Susan, and where you and John typically do them more often than not, I trust you probably have an agreement with the local inspector where you might be able to do a 12-pack.
Yeah.
And it might be a financial difference, because if it's going to become part of your value proposition, part of your wall of value, we do home inspections ahead of time as a service to you guys to lessen the blow and lessen the concessions and the aspects coming from the buyer after they go into contract with us.
Yeah.
Same way you could do that with a stager, photographer. If you're going to be a repeat offender with these allied resources, stands to reason if you have that conversation, come to an agreement to maybe save a little bit of money in the long run.
Absolutely. And you know what? They're faster. They don't take as long because they don't have a buyer following them around.
Yeah.
Asking questions.
Yep.
So it is a little bit different, but the outcome is the same. You're
Yeah.
getting that report and then you're going over that report with your seller.
Yeah, it's the real big rocks. It's the true red flags. It's
Yeah.
not, because Susan made this point earlier. You're going to get a lot of stuff that your buyers are going to come back to you for, and they are honey-do lists. They are cosmetic. They're aesthetic changes. Like, you know, everything about the house is rock solid. We didn't like the carpet in the family room.
Yeah.
Nobody's liked the carpet in the family room since 1975, and that's something you can change later, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so once we move past inspection, then you can let your seller know that the next step is to expect for a visit from an appraiser. And of course you go to that, and then set the expectation. The house has to get appraised for lending. It's a quick visit. They're going to look in every room. They might be taking measurements. And the bulk of their work is done behind the scenes, running comparables. And that report goes back to the buyer. That is not something that we own, and set the expectation that we're not going to know what the number comes back at unless it's lower than the purchase price. All we really want to hear is that we're past inspection. I mean, we're past appraisal. Because they're going to be like, well, I want to know what it came back at. We don't set the expectation up front. You're not going to. But we ran comps. You've done all that other stuff ahead of time on the purchase price. We just want to get past the appraisal part for lending. Okay, that's your seller timeline. And plot communication points. This is really awesome. Do sellers like having a pre-inspection have their own appraisal? I do not. Oh, that's a great question to start. I have once in a while called in an appraiser for a seller when I have a really unique property that is really hard to find true comparables for. Right now, outside of that, no, you should be able to run comps. If you can't run comps, then start practicing at night. Take some properties that are listed by somebody else, or just your own property, your family's property, your friend's property, and practice running comps. Otherwise, we don't generally have the sellers do a pre-appraisal. And how much do appraisals cost? They used to be $500. I'm seeing them really like $550. I've seen just a regular single family $700. If it's a multifamily, you get charged per unit. So it could be $800. If it's a single family and it's a rental, it gets charged more than just a single family that's going to be owner occupied. So a baseline, I always give them generic numbers. It's going to be $550 to $750 or something like that for a buyer. Okay. So one of the many ways that you provide value to your client is by making the closing seamless. And so our relationships that we have along the way and our communication help us to get there. The goal is for us to tell them what's happening before they have a question for us. Next steps. So that's a great, even subject line if you're in your emails. Your next step is the communication, plotting communication points is, what's going to happen next and how are they going to do that? And what's the best way to communicate that to them? We can communicate by email, we can pick up the phone, we can send a text. Know when to use each one of those modes of communication. When it's something that requires two-way conversation, please just pick up the phone. Our buyers and sellers need to hear from us under contract to close to make sure that they're hearing what we are saying. The biggest myth in communication is that people heard you. So you might be saying, oh, I told them that, but if they didn't hear what you thought you were telling them, it never really happened. So communication is really important. Who do you need to communicate with? You need to communicate with everyone. You need to be verbally speaking to everybody on these timelines. You need to be communicating with your co-broke. You are now in relationship with them. You're dating them for 60 days, whether you like them or not. That is part of your job. We want to communicate with our co-brokes in the way that we want them to communicate back to their side. So if I have the buyer and we're doing an inspection response and I'm asking for things, I'm not sending over a document by email asking for things without calling and talking to them about that. For example, if you're going to negotiate on an inspection and it's on significant issues, a significant issue for my buyer might be very different than a significant issue for your seller. If my buyer is an elderly person and they need handrails put up or they need something fixed, and your seller is a contractor and it's really easy for them to do that, and they're like, that is the easiest thing, that is not significant, you're both right. So my conversation would be, hi, Kristen, this is Susan, blah, blah, blah. I sent over the home inspection response. This is what they're asking for. This is significant to my buyer. And now I actually start using their names because I want to communicate to that agent how I want them to go back. I want them to go back and say the exact words that I said. So I'll say, this is important to Tony and Sue because they can't navigate stairs well. So it's significant to them. So when the agent comes back and says, well, that's not a significant issue for my seller, you can say, you know what, from my buyer's perspective, it's significant because of this. And they're right. From your seller's perspective, I get it. They're handyman. They can fix this stuff all day long and it's not significant and they're right. However, this is what we have to work with. So I'm acknowledging both sides, but I'm communicating how I want them to go back and talk to their seller. Because now they can go back and say, you know what? The buyers, Tony and Sue, they're older. They can't really navigate stairs. It's not really significant, but this is what they really need you to do. And you know what? Most times sellers want to do that. They want the buyer to love the house with the way that they've loved it. I just have to present the information in that way. But if I present it only by a written addendum, that agent's not going to get that whole backstory. So I need to do that. So who do we communicate with? We communicate with everyone. Your checklist should have a schedule of when you need to talk to each party. So I talk to my lenders, whether I have the buyer or seller, every week. I just touch base. It's quick. My lenders, my co-broke, the title, the attorneys, the inspectors, the appraisers, these are all people that I have to have good communication with. Appraisers, when I have the seller, I need to make sure that that appraiser, like right now, man, prices are, they're way up high. I need them to know when I'm meeting them at the property, and yes, you need to go to that, even if it's a vacant property, because you are building relationship with them. And some people will bring comps for that appraiser. I do not bring comps for that appraiser because I know they can run them themselves, but I offer value. And I say, if you're having any issues with comps or have any questions about the property while you're doing your comps, please call me. I'm happy to work through that with you. So you'll develop what works for you, but the communication point and being verbal and in person, and rapport is important for everybody. Relationships is for this transaction, and it's for future business. So we're constantly thinking, I'm giving the best service for repeat and referral business. If for the co-broke side of this, it's so important to me to have good relationships with my co-brokes. And does that mean I like all of them? Heck no. Does that mean they're all easy to work with? Absolutely not. Am I going to see them out in the playground again? Yeah, I hope so, because I plan on being here. When I'm writing my next offer for my next buyer, I want that listing co-broke to say, oh, well, this is an offer from Susan Kenyon. I can work really well with her. Versus, I just got an offer from Donald Duck, and we're not going to get through this transaction. It's important to have those really good relationships. You don't have to like them. You don't have to want to have personal time with your co-brokes, but your co-broke relationships and your reputation in your marketplace is very, very important. So pay attention to them and communicate with them in a way that they feel that you're on the same team. It should not be like this, because issues and problems are going to come up under contract to close, and we have to be solution oriented and work together. And for email communication, please be professional every single time. You have a subject line. It's there for a reason. It's for you to write something in it. And it's not supposed to be for writing in the whole content of what your email is. So put a subject line in there. I do every email. Hi, Tim. I hope that you're doing well. Reaching out to you in regards to finance commitment deadline coming up or something like that. Please call me if you have any questions, Susan. It should be professional every single time. We're not here to, we're here to build that relationship. We want to always be the most professional person in the contract. And we can do that by representing ourselves well in your email communication.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because outside of the contract, that's where we start to get nuancy. It's a French word for screwing things up, right?
Yeah.
And like I can't text Erin and be like, hey, Erin, Timmy, you got that stuff about the thing for next week? She's got 18 other contracts going on, right?
No idea what you're talking about.
And because
Tim.
there's no signature block at the bottom of my email,
Yeah.
doesn't mean that I can start being really laissez-faire because it's text. And I would recommend that anything that is attached to the contract should probably remain in an email, just because we're starting to get to the point where people are bringing text threads, or as the kids call them, receipts, DMs into the courtroom for certain other litigations. I just think if we're really going to have it tied to our business, at the very least, our lowest level of communication, if we want to be within compliance, is like the voicemail and the text don't count. Send an email. So there's a trail of custody of the information, so.
And don't assume that the communication was received. Some people don't listen to their voicemail. Sometimes my voicemails I get, and they were like from 2 days ago, or maybe an email might have gone to spam. Back it up with, if you sent an important email, it's okay to text them. Hey, it's Susan. I just sent you an email about inspection.
For sure.
Please confirm that you received it. And if you don't hear back from them, if they're not acknowledging it, don't get snarky with them. Just say, hey, just want to make sure you got that. And if they're like, yeah, I got it, just say, great, thanks.
Well, and you also can't count on the read receipt.
Yeah.
Because even if I have it turned on my account, Erin could have it turned off.
Yeah.
Like, for example, if I shut off read receipt on my text messages and my wife texts me and I read it, but I don't get back to her, I get yelled at less because she doesn't think I read it. Where in my heart of hearts, I did. In the cockles of my cockles, I did. And I loved her and I meant to reply. Like, how many people today meant to reply to a text yesterday? Right.
Oh.
And that gets lost on us too. So yeah. So a simple text, like Susan said, just like, hey, just sent off an email. We're invariably doing this when we make an offer. Just sent over the offer, wanted to make sure you knew it was in your inbox, because time is of the essence. Time kills deals, right?
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it will help too, like, just to not get upset if they don't communicate back to you the way that you want to be communicated to, because it's not about you. You're always communicating in a way that will best serve your client. And being professional and helping keep everybody on the same page will do that, and get you to the table with the most peace. And don't pass on that sentiment. Just like I'm communicating to that co-broke, I'm kind of scripting with them, and they don't know I'm scripting them. I'm giving them the language I want them to use with their client. If there are some people that are very heated in this business, they're very defensive. And if they are communicating to me in that manner, I don't pass that on to my client. It doesn't serve them. They don't need to know. I don't need any bad feelings there. And if they never know how awful a seller or a seller's agent was, then I've done my job. I can complain about that. It's my 60-second funeral in my office. I can complain about a co-broke for 60 seconds. And then I move on, because you don't want to stay in that mindset of being upset with a co-broke.
Yeah, the great Nate Dickey, our operating principal and our regional director for New England, always says you can bring one of two things to a fire: kerosene or water.
Yeah.
Right. And not that you want to put the fire out, but when you're ready to put the fire out, you have the water. Don't bring the kerosene. Not a good idea. There's no just in case for kerosene near a fire.
Yes.
And Susan makes a great point. We talked about this a lot of times in the last couple of weeks. I never want to go to my seller, Aaron and Maddie McLaughlin, and be like, oh my God, these people on the other side and the Kenyans make me want to eat my face and jump out of a first floor window. Because invariably, like in 3 weeks, I have to go back and ask the McLaughlins for goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no, the Kenyans are doing a great job and their buyers aren't jackasses. I said that, didn't mean it. Wish I could take it back. Like you can't unsay those things.
You can't.
Like we are the firewall between the problem in the street and our buyers or sellers. Our job is to step into the conversation and extract emotion and insert professionalism, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at 10:30. So are you guys up for a 10-minute break?
I think the kids love you for sure. Yesterday, Jameis and Sousa had them using pickle jars under their desks. So I think everybody's probably excited about a bio break today. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll come back at 10:42.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Susan.
Hey, Susan, can I ask you a quick question?
Hi, sure, Amy.
Thanks. I've bought and sold homes in Tennessee and Pennsylvania, and I don't know, is it a state-specific thing where we were told in both states that the selling agent could not be at the home inspection and the appraisal? But am I hearing you wrong in saying that as a seller's agent, you do go to them?
I go to them. It may be, I'm not familiar with those states, so that may be something different. So I'll say a couple things about that. If another agent tells you that you can't, then that's also where your co-broke relationship and your communication is really important, to let them know that you will be there. And so now they're already letting you know that they're nervous about you being there. So let them know, like, I'm going to be there. It's my responsibility to be here when anybody else is at the home for my seller, to represent them and represent the property. But I don't have to follow you around. I'll be there for a resource if you have questions. But yeah, just because another agent will tell me that I can or cannot do something doesn't mean that I can or cannot do that. So for me, know your state regulations. I've not heard of anything in our area that it's not allowed. But communicate back to them so that it's not a contentious viewpoint. It's more of, you do have a responsibility in representing a seller. You have a responsibility to protect that home and their belongings. And sometimes it's really can be beneficial for the seller's agent to be there as well, because sometimes a home inspector might even have questions. They might say, well, I'm not really sure about this. It could be this or it could be that. I can get on the phone with my seller and say, can you give me more information on the heating system? Can you give me more information on the irrigation system? Where do I find this? And they might say, oh, it's here, here, and here. And I can redirect the home inspector in that area and have them relook at something. When I'm at a home inspection and I'm representing the seller, I don't argue with the home inspector, because that automatically can set defenses up high from the buyer's agent and for the buyer. And it's not personal for me, it's just business, but I am there to be a resource. I also need to know if there's something significant that I can be preparing my seller, like these things have come up. That has happened to me before. And my seller is like, before the home inspection is done, has been like, I've already called my electrician. They're coming to check on these things before it's even asked for.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. You're welcome. Anybody else have any more questions before we move on?
Amy, I'm with you. I sold in Georgia and it was the same thing. The seller's agent was not allowed to be at the appraisal. So you got feedback like second and third hand before you actually got the report.
Yeah. When I have the buyer, if the seller's agent is not there and something significant came up, I've kind of given them the heads up on that as well. Like, we're working on a response. However, you might want to let your seller know that there's potential mold in the attic, because we're on the same team. And I want them to know that. I'm giving them a professional courtesy by letting them know, and I'm not giving away any leverage or anything confidential about my client at the same time.
Yeah, that's how it came across. Exactly. It's just like, hey, just a heads up. It wasn't anything major. It was almost like what you said earlier. The honey-do list became the, you need to do this as a seller. And I'm like, really? Oh, yeah. Okay. Sure. Whatever.
Yeah. Awesome. So let me advance our slide here. So here we have an activity of plotting your documents. We're not going to do that because I'm really going to try to end on time today. So now we're at best practices for managing the deal. And, a lot of this is, when we're managing the deal, we're sending documents to anyone for follow-up. We're calling, we're texting. We're careful about leaving voicemails because not everyone listens to them. But we are being very responsible with paperwork. So for contracts, addendums, any of that type of documentation, we're making sure that everybody has what they need when they need it. So if lenders need addendums that might be changing purchase price or seller concession or something like that, we're making sure that whether I have the seller or the buyer, that they have those documents. I like to drive the bus in both directions. So if I have the seller, I don't assume that the buyer's agent remembered to give that addendum over to the lender. I will probably do touch base when I touch base with them every week on that as well. Do you have the executed addendum with the seller concession? Something like that. And be very timely on that. So as soon as you're knocking over those dominoes for your timeline and things that have to happen, be very timely. Make sure that things are happening quickly and efficiently so that other people can do their jobs, like the attorneys or the title companies or the lenders. The sooner they have those, the sooner that they can keep their files up to date, that we're moving everything forward smoothly. I also, I put everything in writing when it's in terms of the contract and the contract to close, that's appropriate, because people forget verbals. Like, so if they're like, oh, the seller said that they would, have an electrician over. And if that's something that's important that needs to get written into an addendum, then we're just putting it all in writing to make sure that we all have clarity around that. Best practices and risk avoidance. This is a great slide, because where is the deal at risk for falling apart? Inspections. Inspections are one of the biggest ones. Appraisals could be one of them, making sure that we are in line with what the market is. If you have a house listed for 500 and there's a lender involved, it's not cash, and they put a $600,000 offer in and you accepted it and your seller's super excited and it's never going to appraise, we need to be avoiding those kind of pitfalls, because that's where they're going to have an appraisal. It comes in, it's low, they don't get the financing, and your deal could or could not fall apart. So we want to avoid that kind of thing from happening. So if you have the seller, price it right. And if the purchase and sales is over asking, run your comps. You need to find out, can the buyer pay over the appraisal? Do they have those kind of funds available to them? So we want to find those things up front, not when the appraisal comes in, because the appraisal comes in towards the end of a transaction. And now we have had the seller take the house off the market and they've said no to other buyers. They may be purchasing something else. They may have already started packing and moving and all of this other stuff. And if we have to go back on the market because a deal falls apart, that's going to drastically impact that seller. I've had that happen with a seller, and the deal fell apart at the end, and they had, I'm in New Hampshire, they had already gotten rid of their, snow blower and all that stuff. And we were right on that timeline. It creates a lot of problems. So we really want to be avoiding those pitfalls. And the lender approval process. So if we're going through inspections and we're going to ask for seller concessions, you're in communication with your lender. You should know from a buyer perspective and from the seller side, how much concession is actually allowed. The seller can't just give a blanket amount of money as a seller concession, depending on your lending type. So be in touch with your lender to know what those parameters are. So if you're already under contract and getting seller concessions, and now you're going to be going through the home inspection and asking for something back, and the seller's agent says, well, we'll just give you more money as a seller concession, that might or might not be allowed. So you're going to want to know that at that point. What else did I have in there? The loan types, very important to know that. For the inspections, best practices for keeping the deal alive, setting those expectations for your buyer that, you're buying a used home. The seller doesn't have to agree to do everything. So if you are going through the showing and before you write the offer and you see that there's a lot of deferred maintenance, you need conversations around that, because the buyer might be thinking, well, I'll just ask them to fix that at inspections, after inspections. Well, if it's already disclosed, that should be taken into consideration in your offer. You also want to try to find out an idea if the seller is even able to do that. Not all sellers are able to do everything that you might be asking of them. So going into a property like that, where there could be deferred maintenance, there could be some issues that that have potential for coming up, before you have your buyer pay for inspections and all that other stuff, you need to have conversations around that. Like, well, this is our offer. It got accepted. It's a very competitive market. The seller may not come back and do anything after inspections in regards to these areas. Would you still be comfortable moving forward, so that it's not a surprise when the inspection happens? And that's where being in relationship with the lender to find out what the buyer's parameters are, being in touch with the seller to know what their parameters are. Coaching your buyer on getting documents in on time. That's a best practice to keep the deal alive. What tasks have deadlines, and what are those deadlines? That's your job. You must know what the deadlines are and work towards meeting them prior to the deadline. Nobody on the other side wants to be getting documentation in regards to a deadline at the 11th hour. It really causes a lot of problems. It's a potential for a deal falling apart. For example, depending on what state you're in or what you might have built into your contract, if there's things that have to happen around financing, like maybe a finance commitment or something like that, getting that commitment, if you have a deadline in the contract and you have a date of a Sunday, you might want to take that into consideration when you're writing your agreements up, so that you're not putting the lender in that scenario of having to get documents in on a Saturday or Sunday, because you might not get them on time. You have to manage that piece of the process. You want to if you have the buyer, you want to make sure that they are being fiscally responsible. If you know your buyer is tight on money or credit, their credit scores just barely pop them into being able to buy, you want to be in communication with them with that, on things like, please don't open up a credit card to buy new furniture until after you close and own the property. Please don't buy a new car. That happens more frequently than you would think. A buyer will go out, they're under a contract to buy a house, and they buy a new car. That changes their credit, changes their debt to income ratio. It could impact their lending. So we want to be in communication with them on all of these pieces throughout the process. We also want to let them know you don't own the house until the closing table. So if they are like, oh, I want to do all this work to this, I want to have contractors in, can we get in before and start painting? Can we get in before and have contractors come in for pricing? No. Set the expectations ahead of time that these things happen. These are the things that happen during contract to close, and these are the things that happen after you own the property. I like to manage the other parties involved, like sellers. If I have the buyer, I want to be communicating with their agent to make sure that, are they packing? Did they have responsibilities in regards to the home inspection, like fixing things, getting receipts to you? You don't want to be waiting until the day before closing to get those pieces of documentation, because sometimes the sellers forget that they were supposed to have that furnace serviced. So you need to be coaching the other agent on the other side. Has the furnace been serviced yet? Can we have a receipt of that? It's 2 weeks before closing. Have these things been done? Make sure that the sellers are maintaining their property up until the day of closing. So that means they have to plow. They have to shovel the walkways. They have to mow. They have to keep all their utilities on. They have to keep fuel in the tank. I just closed a deal where The property was vacant, and I knew that the seller's agent was never going over there to check on the property. So I got permission. Can I stop in every week and check on the property? Is that my job? No, that's her job. But was she doing it? No. But I want my buyer to have the best experience possible. And I let them know I'm doing that. I stopped by your property this week. I just left. There's very little fuel in the tank. I let the seller know when they're going to be putting oil in the tank this week. Or there's snow on the ground and you have a home inspection and the property's vacant and it's not shoveled. So you need to be up communicating with that other agent. Please make sure that the driveway is plowed. Please make sure that the walkway is cleared. We need access to this. We need to be able to see this. Those are areas where, you know, your deal can go sideways really fast and where you could be preventing a negative experience for your client. And hey, how about this one? You could be providing a great experience for the other person's client that could result in a deal for you in the future. Do you know what most agents don't do? They don't stay in communication with their clients after they close. So now, if I have the seller and you have the buyer and we close and you're not staying in communication with them and they had a great experience from me and I've sent them a thank you note for a great closing, maybe I've sent them a Christmas card, I've gotten calls from that. So do a good job for both sides because you never know when that's going to come back. Or that seller could be going out to dinner with their friends. And, you know, I play with a lot of the same people in the market. That seller could go out to dinner and say, oh yeah, my agent so-and-so, we just closed. But you know what? Susan Kenyon was working with the buyer. She was great. That's all I need. Goodwill in the marketplace can go a long way because they could be, their friends could be hearing that about me from somebody else. And when they have a need, they might remember my name and seek me out. And those things really, really do happen, even if you don't think that they do. So best practices is to really be looking at, you know, both sides to see how you can make it a better transaction, both sides to make sure that everybody has all of the paperwork that they need, and to make sure that we're getting to the closing table in a very happy, productive way.
Hey, Susan.
Does that make sense for everybody?
Susan?
Hi.
Hi, are you allowed to talk to the seller at all, or does it have to always go through the agent? If you feel the agent isn't doing it, can you talk to the seller?
No. I'll tell you what, I'll light up like a Christmas tree if another agent contacts my client. And you really can go sideways with that. If the agent is not doing their job and they're being very difficult, go to your leadership and ask for some guidance on that. You know, I have had times where I've had to have my broker reach out to their broker to solve a problem that's not getting solved and our deadlines are coming up. Like I've had an agent go on vacation when we have deadlines due and not tell me that. And now I can't get a hold of them. I don't drop the ball. I just find a different way, but I cannot go to their client. That really is an ethics issue that you could get yourself into hot water for. And sometimes the clients are difficult. Sometimes my clients are difficult and it's very hard to manage that. But remember, we're just dating. This relationship's going to end in 60 to 90 days or however long it takes. So reaching out to the other person's client's a big no-no, and finding another way around that if you're having a problem. Go to your leadership. There are solutions that can be made for that.
Hey, Susan.
Hi.
Hi. I have a question. I have buyers, so they already have the pre-approved with some lender, I don't know, and I wanted to reach to the lender. So what I should ask him, you know, like just to say that I'm represented them and they start to ask about the type of lending, like you say, and all that, what they have, or.
Yeah. So as soon as I'm meeting with a buyer, I reach out to their lender and so this is a communication piece that happens with your buyer as well. You let them know that you're going to be reaching out to them, and let them know why it's a benefit to them. So great, you have a lender. You may not love that lender. You know, if it's Rocket Mortgage, you might have some red flags go up about that. You might not. You may want to offer to give a couple of local lenders to say, you know what, it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion if you're in that beginning dating phase with that buyer.
Yes.
But at any rate, you want to reach out to them and say, I'm working with, you know, so-and-so, and we're going to be getting ready to go shopping. Don't go shopping if they can't buy.
Yes.
Because buyers are going to say, oh no, I'm approved for 800,000. And then you reach out to the lender and they're like, yeah, I've not even heard from them. Okay. So now we know we have to take a couple steps back and get into group communication. So now I can send a group email to both the buyer and that lender saying, this is what we need next. I need to call my buyer and say, the lender's not familiar with who you are. This is what I need you to do next. I need you to call them. I need you to fill out, I need you to start getting pre-approved. These are the things they're going to be asking for.
Thank you.
Yeah. And definitely know their lending type, because if they have a VA or an FHA lending and that's all that they can do, you now know that you might have property conditions that you have to meet, because not all lending types will lend on every type of property. So know what those conditions are so that you can be looking at those, and that you can now start guiding your buyer as to, because they're going to say, oh my God, I saw this property and I love it, I want it. So now you can do it over the phone. Both of you call up that property, both of you look through the pictures and you say, okay, it's a great property, but these are my concerns. I can tell that the roof is at the end of its life. There's broken windows, there's no railings, there's this, there's that. Find out from the lender, do they have the ability to switch to a conventional? Because that might allow them to get into a property that has some property conditions. Find out from the listing agent, there are these property conditions and they're not too bad, but there's a lot of peeling paint and I have an FHA buyer. Is your seller open to painting? If they're like, my seller can't do anything, they're in their 90s, they can't do any maintenance to this house, nor do they have the capacity to hire anybody. So now I know that it might not be worth us going to see that house. Don't put your buyer into a house that they can't buy. And it's a waste of their time and it's a waste of your time. And the script for that is, Sarah, I know that it's a great property, but I've reached out to the agent and they're not going to be able to fix anything. And I don't want you to go see a property that you can't put an offer in and fall in love with it. Just like not knowing what their purchase power is. They could be looking at an $800,000 house and their lender can be like, they absolutely cannot spend more than 500. And that's the same script. Sarah, it's a great property. In speaking with your lender, you qualify for a max of this amount of money. And this is this much over that amount of money. The last thing I want to do, Sarah, is show you a house that now you fall in love with and you can't put an offer in on it. I don't want to break your heart that way.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, your co-broke relationships. I know this is like me beating a dead horse, but it's so important. I just love that they actually put a whole slide in here for this. Why is your relationship with your co-broke important, and where could the deal be at risk if you don't work with your co-broke? So we've covered this a lot. And not all agents are easy to work with. And that's why it's important for us to remember that this is business for us. It's not personal. Your emotion when you communicate will pass on to the co-broke, and most of the time that co-broke will pass that emotion on to their client. We're sitting in a way better seat because we have training and education around this. That is not the same for all brokerages. I would say the majority of the time, you can assume that they're going to pass on your emotion to their client. So give them an emotion that you want passed on. Okay. We want to make this a win-win for everybody. So we're coaching them. We're staying positive. Sell your position. We are salespeople. If you don't think that this is a sales job, then stop now. This is a sales job. We're realtors because we're in sales, not because we love houses, not because we love DIY programs. We are here to sell. So we need to be selling our client's position. And sometimes the other side wants to know those pieces about your client because it might help them to do things in the contract that they might not normally do, like repair things, like grant an extension. There's a thousand possible scenarios of what we might have to potentially ask of the other side. So the better relationship we have with the co-broke, the more likely that we're going to be able to get them to give our client extensions or changes to contracts that when we need them. Tim says, even difficult buyers provide an opportunity to learn. Ask what made it difficult. And is there anything I could have done to make it not difficult? That's a great point. Absolutely. And you know what? When we do something wrong, there's two very powerful words that you can use. I'm sorry. You're right. If you do something wrong, own it. We're all human. And if the other person does something wrong and comes back and says they're sorry, thank them. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, how are we moving forward? We don't know what people's lives are at home. The other co-broke could be going through a difficult scenario. The other buyer or seller could be going through a difficult scenario. So we want to be communicating with compassion and understanding while also representing our client's best interest. Our reputations live past this deal, and our reputation in the marketplace is important. It's important for people to know that you're professional. It's important to know that for them to know that you're understanding. It's important for them to know that you're a problem solver. And it's important for them to know that you're great to work with. And that one line when there is differences between a buyer and seller is your client has this perspective in their right. My client has this perspective in their right. So how are we going to come together? Let's come up with a solution that both can work with, because we want a win-win. Deals work better when there's a win-win. And sometimes we're having to coach our clients on that, right? Some clients are like, no, I want this. I want this. I'm right. I'm right. And that's the same line you give them. Yes, you are. You're absolutely right. And you know what? This person feels this way and they're right too. And we do want a win-win. Somewhere later down this contract, we might be needing to ask something of them. So how can we keep this together right now? So should that scenario happen, we're more likely to get what you need. So it all depends on your client's personality type. Tone is really important. Do not yell. This is business, not personal. Never write something down in a text or an email that you don't want to have read back to you when your broker calls you, or when the real estate commission calls you, or when the ethics committee calls you. If you have something to say that shouldn't be said or shouldn't be written, if you have to type it and delete it, do that if it makes you feel better, but be mindful of what you put out there, because once people hear something or see something, they can't unhear or unsee it. And I do like to always remind myself that sometimes the other side of the transaction needs to vent. If I have to call that co-broke and say, we did the home inspection and we found 4 really significant issues. That other agent this might be the only transaction they have going on. This could be really traumatic for them to hear and being like, oh my God, this deal's gonna go dead and I've already spent my commission check. Or it could be very difficult for the seller to hear. So let people vent and then bring them back to working on a solution. But sometimes people just need to do that depending on their personality type too, right? And so give them the ability to vent and then have grace and allow them to come back and move forward. Super important, your co-broke relationship. Get repeat business and referrals. This is really a lifeline of my business. We do a lot of repeat and referral business. I get referrals from other agents. I get referrals from past clients. I get referrals from current clients. I get referrals from my sphere. I'm always asking for them. And doing a really great job at contract to close can get you a referral. So wow your clients. Make a big impression of being awesome. How can we do that? You can encourage them to use the KW app. You can have things like vendor and utility lists so that when you need to be the source of the source, you have that ready to go. I keep a spreadsheet of anything that might be valuable to a client in any given situation. And they're not always on my vendor list, but I have them at the ready because when my client asks for someone to replace garage doors, I want to be able to give them some resources. Cleaning out, house clean outs by lenders, inspectors, maintenance repair people, electricians, contractors. I keep that list on there. And if I'm on my KW, my Market Center's Facebook page and somebody else asks, hey, who knows a great person for doing a site survey? I might not need a site survey, but I'm always opening up that spreadsheet when other agents are like, this person is great. I put them on my list so that I have that, because in 6 months when I need that resource, I'm not going to remember who that was, but I can be really fast about finding out that name and being prepared to provide that resource for my clients. And sometimes it's providing resources for non-clients. If I'm on Facebook and somebody in my sphere is looking for an electrician, I am PMing them as fast as I possibly can. I have a couple of great electricians. What's going on at your house? Are you, what's happening that you need one? Here's some resources. How can I help you? Maybe they're sprucing up their home to sell and now you've reached out to them with value. Guess what? You're going to get repeat and referral business from that. Anytime somebody in my sphere needs a resource for real estate, I want to provide that for them. I want to be reminding them that I am their resource for anything real estate related, not just when you're ready to transact, but whenever you need anything to do with real estate or home maintenance. Coming from a place of contribution will help you with getting repeat and referral business. Creating the vendor list. I get real estate referrals from my vendors. I've had my title companies give me referrals because I do such a great job for them. I get them their paperwork before they need it. They know from seeing how I transact that if they refer somebody to me, then I'm going to give them excellent service. So that's a great way to get repeat and referral business. And gifts work. Gift, gift, gift. You gift people in your life that do good things for you, that help you along the way. If you're getting a referral from someone, I'm gifting them. I'm sending them a card right away. They're right at my desk. All I have to do is turn around, grab my card, open my drawer, which I keep a stack of gift cards in. Here's a Starbucks card. Thank you, a latte. I really appreciate you referring Tim Lindsay over to me. Even if it's a crappy referral. You get crappy referrals.
Thank you, a latte. I think, good night, everybody. Drive safely. I'm done. That's a mic drop right there. Thank you, a latte. Is honestly, we're 17 and a half sessions in, and that's the meat on the bone for me. Thank you, a latte. I can die now. That's amazing.
Right?
That's amazing. Is that yours? Do we have to footnote that that's you, or are you R&Ding that from somebody else? That's a Susan Kenyon production. God bless you. You're a genius.
But I do it a lot and it pays. I do that for every referral. If it's for a $50,000 mobile home, which I would hate, I wouldn't hate. It's not the same as getting a $500 referral. Let's just be honest. If you got a referral for $500,000 home or a $50,000 home, I'd be a lot more excited over the $500,000 home.
Sure.
But that person that gave me the referral will never know that. And they will get the exact same appreciation from me that the other person got.
Yeah. I was distracted by the semantics, but yes, I love the point that you're making. We talked about this the last couple of weeks. We have to remember that this person in our life, the civilian in our life, gave us an at-bat. So to be able to thank them with that cup of coffee and then say, hey, the next time, hopefully we can have it in person. And then, when we get to the closing table, if the Kenyans sent me the McLaughlins, then I'm absolutely going to bring the Kenyans and the McLaughlins. We're all going to go out to eat at some point.
Yeah.
But I want to reward the activity of every time you send me one of your people, I'm going to send you a quick note that says, thanks a latte. I love that. And hey, I'll keep you up to date on how things are going with the
Yep.
McLaughlins. Because too
Absolutely.
often in our head, we're like, well, the McLaughlins ended up not selling. Well, did they decide not to sell because I sucked at the kitchen table? I mean, it's a possibility, right?
Yeah.
Like you gave me the at bat. That's what needs to be rewarded, not whether the outcome was good for me and my business and my family's opportunity.
Yeah.
And that gets lost in translation all the time. I'm still stuck on the thanks a lot. I'm going to write.
And you don't know who other people know. Like I could be referred to, and this has happened. I've been referred to a buyer that just needs to buy, $150,000 mobile home or something like that. Something small. That's what they can afford. And mom and dad are paying for it.
Yeah. His
And
uncle's about to buy a marina.
And then that happens. But I gave them excellent service. And, we listed the tiniest house I've ever seen in my life this winter. It was itty bitty small. It looked like a ice shack for ice fishing people. I'm obviously not a fisher person. What are those things called? Ice shack? It was the size of that.
Yeah.
The door didn't even latch and it was wintertime. You literally went up to it and went like that.
I think they call them Bob houses, is my guess.
Bob houses.
And
That's
I've never been. I drive by and I think I would never put an $80,000 truck out on the lake. Like
Right?
these guys that have, my F-350 just sitting on Winnipesaukee waiting for the ice out. It's an expensive test.
But we gave him excellent service. And we ended up with the buyer on that. So we're dual agents sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer, I don't know if you can read that.
Oh, McCollin. Oh, McCollin's good stuff.
Believe me,
That
I
is
can
top
read
of
it.
the morning right there.
He was so appreciative that we gave him service at his price point when
Yeah.
other agents weren't calling him back.
Tell John I'll help him with that if he's going to be home later on. I'll swing by the house. Is that
Really?
McAllen 18? Holy Lord.
12.
Oh, it's still good. A couple of dabs of that behind the ears, you're good for a night out. Yeah.
I know.
That'll get you going. That'll get you to where you're going.
So sometimes the gifts can come back this way too. But I'm a squirrel. I got totally off track. But
Well,
give
you
your
brought up
referral
scotch. I'm
bonus
distracted now
gift.
too. Scotch and lattes. Yeah.
Give closing gifts that matter. It really does come back to you. Getting repeat and referral business can be a lifeline for you. Even throughout, so now you've met someone and now you continue to send them stuff. That doesn't always have to have a gift card in it, but now they're on my Christmas card list. Now they're, they're getting home anniversary cards when they buy every single year, even if they've been there for 8 years. Every year they will get a home anniversary card from me every single year.
Yeah,
Those things matter. So put some thought into that. Get onto their social media. Repeat and referral business. If they've had a baby, send them a baby card. If somebody died, send them a sympathy card. If something great happened in their life, send them something. If their kids are into sports and you read a great sports article, send it to them. Whatever it is, that's how you get repeat and referral business, by constantly reminding them that you're there with good things.
Yeah.
Also with business related things. Then when you call them for business, they're not saying, oh, Susan's calling me for business again. Because I've reached out to them in a personal way frequently.
Yeah, and I earlier somebody had mentioned about closing gifts, and I know we're in the midst of that entire conversation right now. I'm not anti-consumable because I'm not upset about your McCollin 12 that you have there. I think for the consumer though, I think if you're going to get the candle that will melt, or the wine that will get drunk, or the food that will get eaten, I think those go by the wayside. And although they're nice, right? I think I would recommend, I would invite you to consider something that's going to stay in their kitchen forever, whether it's Cutco knives or that butcher block that you might have branded for marketing purposes and tax purposes. You might have branded on one side. They can push that up against the subway tile, right? They don't have to have your brand poking out into the kitchen. Or a lot of people are doing the fresh set of keys, because here in New England, how many times have you talked to the seller? They're like, oh, we don't have keys. Aaron and Maddie pull into the driveway and hit the button. You walk in through the garage, right? All the kids' lacrosse gears in the garage. Like, that's the entrance to your house. You never use the front door. And when you do, it's to open it for guests. You rarely walk in, nobody has keys. Getting the fresh set of keys after maybe getting the house re-keyed and putting it on a keychain that has the coordinates of their front steps. Just some sort of a keepsake. A lot of you guys do just sold with the people out front with the sold sign, and then gifting that in an ornate frame later for that. They always look at it and remember. Because all the other stuff, all the other consumables will go by the wayside and be forgotten. Somebody mentioned the Home Depot gift card. I appreciate that. If your clients do have a big honey-do list, they will appreciate that. I would also want to get them something that's not going to go away.
Yeah.
Just so they see it and remember that you were
Travel
their
mugs
person. Yep.
with things on them.
Yep.
And there's a lot of opportunities that they're not all really expensive, but it's an expense that we just have to get comfortable with paying. I look at gifts as part of my lead generation. And note cards and stuff like that. I consider that part of my lead gen. And I'll give you this one story. I had a beach house listed for $2.6 million. And the buyer came in unrepresented, and I didn't have her phone number. And after we closed, and I had the seller, after we closed, I sent her stuff all the time. I get copies of people's driver's licenses at closing, so I know their birthdays, and I send them a card with scratch tickets in it every year for their birthday.
Yeah, super cool.
She got them too. But for her birthday, I kind of gave her a little bit more. So I dropped off chocolates, gourmet chocolates at her house.
Yeah.
I sent her Christmas cards. I sent her home anniversary cards. I never had her phone number. And 2 years later, she sold and she called me. So even though I don't know if it's working, I just keep putting it out there.
Sure.
I just keep putting it out there.
Yeah.
So these things can work. They can be part of your lead generation activities. It doesn't have to be all calling expireds, but please call. Learn how to get on the phone, do your lead generation, but incorporate some of these things into it too. It will pay you back.
Yeah.
So wow your clients, give them an experience. Okay, and we're gonna go on to command transaction management. So I'm a big fan of databases. If you don't have one, start using one today. You have command. It's part of what you get at Keller Williams. Use that. If you're not using that, find something to use. You can create custom guides and checklists in command. You can create smart plans in command. I'm not going to do a whole how do you do that, but you have resources for that. If you don't know how to do them, go to your productivity coaches and ask them who can help you. But checklists work. You think you're going to remember to do everything, and when you get that call that you didn't do something and there wasn't a deadline attached to it, that's not the time to start creating a checklist. It is part of your job, just like your database. When you think you will remember to call someone, you're going to get busy, and a checklist will help keep you on track. So you need to command your transaction management. Use command or use a database, use your checklists, find a system that will work for you. But staying on track with stuff is important for contract to close. And we're going to pass by the activity. However, you guys can go back and do this. If you go into command, you can go to opportunities and select under contract for your listings or your buyers. You can edit stages. You can ask for help with how other people are setting up their stages. You can add a new stage or customize a checklist. Even if you start with something that's simple, as you grow and have more transactions under your belt, you can modify that. And I'm still modifying that. I'm adding things to my presentations and my contract to close and stuff like that. When one thing will happen in a transaction that's never happened before. And now I'm like, okay, I now need to put that into my checklist because I'm not going to let that happen again. So definitely go back and revisit this on your own time. And ahas. So this is where, like, how has your thinking changed? What ideas or mindsets were new? Because a lot of this is about mindset. We're trying to look at contract to close in a different way than just the purchase and sales agreement. or what do you feel differently about, or what was meaningful that you didn't feel that way before? Does anybody have anything that they'd like to share?
It starts right from the beginning. You're constantly managing that right from the first conversation, managing expectations, letting them know what's going to be their responsibility, what's going to be your responsibility, and prepping them so they have an open mind later on. And so nothing's a surprise. So they know that they're going to have homework, they're going to have things to do, it's going to happen. You're going to drive the bus, but you know, they're going to have to hold their end of the bargain as well.
Awesome. Oops, I'm clicking here and I didn't even know I was clicking. Oh boy, hold on. I got to get back. Here we go. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's great. I'm glad that you got that from today. Anybody else? Any behaviors that going forward might be different, or actions that might be different, or tools or ideas that you might start incorporating or want to incorporate when you get your first transaction?
I like the how you stated that emotion can get passed along. I really appreciated that because I'm not going to speak for everybody. I can get caught up in the, you know, just the details of things and being able to communicate that emotion, but knowing that, you know, it's going to move on to the seller's clients or the broker's clients. And I thought that was helpful.
Yeah, awesome. And that's a practice that takes a lot of practice. And it's taken me a lot of practice over the years. And I sometimes can still get heated about things. I just have to give myself the time to get past the being heated before I communicate. Awesome.
I love that you touched on that, Susan. I think as you're getting started in the industry, you'll have some veteran agents in the office and they'll find out that you're in the midst of a deal with an agent at another brokerage. And they will start to impart upon you their knowledge of this person, and maybe some emotion will be wrapped around that. And, you know, we've got to go into all these engagements, you know, completely, you know, just engage the person, you know, and be authentic and be honest and be professional. More often than not, you'll probably have a different engagement with this person moving forward, and you might be able to change that person's relationship with your office, right? Because we just know without fail, there's some brokerages that, you know, deal with the numbers differently with certain offices because of their engagement. Well, every time I work with an agent there, this is how the cookie seems to crumble. So this is how I've started to treat the entire office. And you could be the person who's the change agent for that entire conversation. I mean, for us up here, it would be 719 people could celebrate that John Kenyon had a great interaction with this agent that has historically not played nice with us or decided to you know, do business differently with us. And I think if we go in and just give everybody the benefit of the doubt and just we have to start to present the new guard, because there's a lot of people marching around, and I'm speaking for people with gray hair because I have gray hair. A lot of people marching around that love to remind you they've been doing business. I co-broke the manger for Mary and Joseph. Like, I appreciate all that, and times have changed. And honestly, some of your closest relationships that you're going to have in real estate will be with, you might have some acquaintances within your market center. You'll have really good relationships with co-brokes across the street at another brokerage because you keep doing business with them. Don't forget the 80-20 rule. 20% of our agents are doing 80% of the business, and they're not all here yet, right? And if you continue to play nice, there's a massive opportunity for you to invite them over, you know, because you're standing at the 2-hour home inspection. And I get to say to Susan and John, like, hey, you guys joined Keller a while ago. Why did you join? Why have you stayed? And they start talking to me. I keep asking questions. Next thing I know, I'm sitting in an Ignite session or a business planning clinic. And suddenly I'm joining forces with them because they've represented the company so well, and they've told such a great story of their experience. So we really have to be open to the entirety of the opportunity when we're engaging with people across the street at other offices, and obviously within our market centers as well.
Yeah. And, you know, if you're working with a co-broke or even a customer or a client in the market, and they say, oh, I worked with a Keller Williams agent, it was not good. Then your script is, well, you know what? I'm really looking forward to giving you a better experience.
Yep.
Thank
Everyone runs their business differently, Mr. Lindsay, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Susan, I had an episode yesterday that I sent out letters, and I'm doing a drawing. And I bumped into a lady who had, right in front of my house, who had always never thought I was home. And she's a friend of a friend. And I said, I had my Keller Williams badge on. And she said, oh, you work for Keller Williams? I said, yeah. And she said, oh, she goes, I'm friends with so-and-so. And I said, that's okay. Because she got my letter. I said, I'm the one that sent the letter. She goes, oh. She said, but I'm friends with her. I said, that's okay. I said, we're all friends. We're all
We
good.
can all be friends.
I said, you can still put your name in my drawing. It's okay.
Yeah.
I said, so I told her, I said, we're all friends. We're not, fighting here, So it was an interesting conversation.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because we always want to be professional out there and wish other agents well. And sometimes your reaction in that manner could sway them into wanting to call you. Because if they say that to the other person, they're like, oh, don't call them. Thank you for sharing, thanks for letting me know that you feel that way. Because, somebody else was really positive about that. They can look at it a different way.
Yeah, the best part of that conversation, Deb, is that she's obviously thinks highly of both of you, right? So that's good. The other side of that coin is, and I know I can guarantee Dr. Kenyon has run into this, your friend out in California bought a house and they're like, oh, don't worry, Susan, we use Keller Williams. Right? Because they think they're going to do like the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon and be like, so Stacy, who bought a house in Malibu, is friends with the Kenyans. So there's still no referral money there. And they're not thinking that way, but that's making sure that we tell our story, that we can help people nationwide. Right. So it's interesting because sometimes people are concerned to tell us that they're working with a fellow agent, which is just good for all of us. And the other side of that coin is they think they did us a favor because they used our brand out in California, but we were not directly part of the conversation. So obviously you don't immediately benefit from it monetarily. So making sure that you got friends moving anywhere on planet Earth, I can help you. Right. Because we've got great contacts all over the globe. Most people in New England get really parochial and they think that we can only help on our street. Right. We find we have to remind people I'm licensed in the entire state of New Hampshire, Maine, Mass, Connecticut, Rhode Island, you know.
Absolutely. Cool. Anybody else? Okay. So we're going to keep on moving on here, and we are at recap and create your success list. So being new and building your database, a good reminder is to, just do a little bit every day. When you're creating your success list, your command and your calendar and your lead gen, they're all important and they have to get put into your system so that you're reminded that you have to do them every day. Otherwise, if you don't do that, if you don't have a success list, if you don't actually have it written down, what you need to do, you're going to get busy getting busy. You're going to spend an hour looking at Cutco knives online to figure out which ones you want to buy when that was your lead generation time. So use your success list to help remind you what your big rocks are, to remind you what the big things are that you need to do so that you get the pleasure of doing the other things. We can never forget, no matter how experienced we are, how many transactions you have under your belt, that we never stop growing our business, because doing the things that you need to do to grow your business gives you the privilege of being able to run your business. So if you're only getting ready to get ready and doing your website and doing your marketing and doing all of these other things, you're never going to put them, they might look fantastic, but I would rather see you have a not so fantastic looking piece of marketing, but have someone to actually give it to. If you don't grow your business, that beautiful piece of marketing will never get in front of somebody's eyes. So create your success list so that you have the ability to actually run your business. Put it in your calendar. If it doesn't get in your calendar, it probably isn't going to happen. And Brian Tracy wrote that book, Eat That Frog. Sometimes your success list is the things that you like doing least. So the concept is the first thing you do in the morning is eat the frog, because it's the worst thing that you're probably going to have to do that day. So do that first. I'm that person. I have to do those things first because I can squirrel into looking for Canyon Team Realty pens all day long. And you have productivity coaches that can help you with that. And that will get you into your daily success habits. So they really are kind of paired with your success lists. If your daily success habits are completed, then you'll move towards your success list. So we can't forget the 10 contacts added a day. And that means 10 real contacts. That means you know their name, their address, their email, their phone number, their significant others. You can track and command your contact health by having, the name is 20%, your email is 20%, phone numbers are 20%, and address is 20%. Their birthdays is 4%, their work is 4%, and tags is 4%. Lead source is 4%, and social media is 4%. I hope I wrote those numbers down right and that they actually add to 100, but because I'm not good at math, but I think I did. So having all of that complete information, like if some people are motivated by, do you guys know what I'm talking about? In Command, you can have a health score on your contacts. The reason that some people like having that all be 100%, it gives them satisfaction. But it's also a reminder that I'm on the phone with them. If I don't have enough information here to give them 100% as a contact in my database, that's more conversation that I can be having with them. Maybe I'm going onto their Facebook page to find out their birthday. Maybe just asking them outright, what's the best mailing address in case I might have something I need to send to you, or I'm just wanting to make sure I have all of your information down so I can best help you in the future. But the 10 contacts added a day is really important, and it's important that they are on a plan. So if you're putting 10 contacts into Command a day, you also have to be putting in a way that you're being reminded to actually reach back out to them. Because you can have 1,000 contacts in your database. If you don't have a way to actually communicate with them, all you did was waste your time. It's our job to remind our contacts that we're here. It's not their job to remember that we're in real estate. And that contact can be family and friends, so that you're reminding your family and friends that you're here and that you're a resource when they need help with real estate. It stinks to go onto Facebook and see one of your contacts just listed with somebody else, when you had the wherewithal to put them as a contact in your database. You just didn't do the next step, which is putting them on a smart plan or an action plan or some method to remind them that you're here. And 10 conversations a day. So we should be having 10 conversations a day with people about real estate, buying, selling, investing. Use your forward scripts. It can be a phone call. It can be Facebook Messenger, but it should be a two-way conversation about real estate. And the only person that you fool here is yourself if you have a conversation with someone about what restaurant they ate at last night. That's not a contact. It's a contact about real estate. 10 handwritten notes. They're super powerful. People love getting a handwritten note. I don't let anything out of my office without the envelope being handwritten. It's just a thing for me. And I'm the only one with decent handwriting, so I have to write a lot of them. And that includes all my Christmas cards. They all get handwritten envelopes. And there's over 500 of them. So guess what? I know I have to start early. But if that's important to you, for the handwritten piece of it, when you get to Christmas cards or holiday cards or 4th of July cards or whatever kind of cards you're doing. But every day, 10 handwritten notes. And that could be, you had a great call with someone, you're going to follow that up with a handwritten note. Keep that stack of cards right at your desk while you're doing your lead generation. And before you are done with the day, that card gets written and a stamp gets put on it and it gets put in the mail. It could be, you could be doing your referral cards, those things too. Being timely on those things gives you the opportunity to give a better impression. So if you're sending a thank you, a latte card out, and it arrives to that person within a week of them sending you the referral, that's way more powerful than it arriving 3 or 4 weeks after they gave you that referral. And there's lots of, handwritten cards are pretty inexpensive. This doesn't have to be a huge expense, but it is impactful. And then 10 home previews per week. Really important, folks, for us to know what to be looking for when we're taking a buyer out or when we're going to list a property. Because our buyers are looking at, are the bedrooms big enough? Is there a room for homeschooling? Do I have a Zoom room here? I like the granite countertops. We should be looking at houses from a different perspective. Like, okay, my buyer gave me their motivation and what their wants and needs are when we first met them. And I have them written down here. Does this house meet those needs? If they're going to want to make an offer on this house, am I looking at all of the right things to help them make the best offer? Like they're walking around and they, am I listing all the personal property that gets written in? Or am I seeing signs of potential water damage when I'm looking around at the ceilings to see if there's any water stains on them? Am I making sure that I can see the foundation when we walk around the basement for cracks? If they said air conditioning is a must-have and they have a hot water system, I'm looking at that to know, are they going to be able to put AC in here? If it doesn't have AC, can we put AC in if that was on their I must have it list? Because they're going to get excited about the granite countertops and we need to bring them back to, okay, when we first met, these are the things that were important to you. This house has these things in it. Have your needs changed? Maybe they have. I had a young couple that did not want a boxed colonial in a new neighborhood. No way, I know. But they told me that before they even told me what they did want. I want an old farmhouse. I want a big piece of land. I want a barn. They bought a boxed colonial in a brand new neighborhood because their needs changed as we saw houses. So it's important to stay in communication and preview homes, and you can preview those homes with your buyers online before they even step into them. So if they give you this list of stuff that they have to have, and they have to have AC, and you're looking at the property disclosure and you know that there's no central AC, and that's a game changer, find out if that's even a possibility for that house and what the expense would be before you set up a showing, so that you're constantly previewing homes so that you know what to look for when you're trying to review your buyer's wants and needs and their motivation. And the same thing when you're working with the seller. It's important for us to preview homes so that when we go into list a house or give a seller consultation, we know how to add value to their lives. We know how to say, you're getting ready to list your home, you learn about their motivation. What can they do to make their home more attractive? If they want a premium price, the home has to be in premium condition. And if that's important to them, you have to guide them along the way, like emptying out your basement, like cleaning out your garage, like replacing your garage doors. Not, oh, you have granite countertops. Or, oh, you have crown molding. What are the things that you can do to get a premium for your house? You'll know that the more you go and see houses. So if you're previewing homes, you're going to very quickly go into a house and know, is this a premium home or not a premium home? Is there hardwood flooring? Is there not hardwood flooring? What does that do to the value of a house? What does that do to helping my seller get the most money for their house? Maybe getting the most money for their house isn't the motivation. Maybe they just have to get out of the house and they can't empty it. You have to know that and preview homes in order to get a flavor, and maybe start looking at properties a different way. They wear the HGTV hat. We wear the real estate hat. And people ask me all the time, you must love those HGTV shows. I hate them. I don't watch them. I see enough of that because I preview homes all the time. So previewing homes isn't just so that you're used to going in and out of a house. It's so that you can go in and out of a house and preview it from the perspective of a buyer, from the perspective of a seller, and what's going to benefit your future clients And how are you going to add value when you're giving your buyer presentations and your listing presentations? How are you going to add value? How are you going to be different from everybody else going in there? It's by knowing how to look at a home and saying, this is what we can do to your home to make it more appealing to sell. We can add this much to your purchase price if you do this. And the same with the buyer. So that's the importance of previewing homes. Does anyone have any questions on that? No?
No questions, just a comment. I know for me personally, I've been looking for any excuse to have a two-way conversation. And as an example, yesterday after Ignite, I went down to the basketball court to get some sun and break up the day and listen to my Think Like a CEO podcast. 5 minutes after I got there, the guy in the next court went to his car, and all you hear is click, click, click. So I knew that was somebody that was about to have a two-way conversation about real estate because he couldn't go anywhere. So I went, talked to him, went and grabbed my jumper cables. While I'm giving him a jump, I just drove down the street to my house, got my cables, and I'm talking to him about real estate while I'm giving him a jump start. And my cards are coming in the mail today. So I wrote down my name and contact information and gave it to him. And I was like, hey man, I'm just getting into real estate. I was like, if you know anybody that's looking to buy, sell, or invest, I really appreciate it. So.
Good for you. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Thank you.
There's opportunities everywhere. Are you guys having a hard time previewing homes? I think we're starting to get a little bit easier with that now, but you know, open houses, if you know somebody in your office is having an open house, you can ask is there any way, you know, hopefully they're getting there 30 minutes before the open house to prepare the house for the open house. Ask if you can go early before they're having a lot of traffic go through there and just let them know what you're doing. Ask if you can go to a home inspection. Find out if there's a broker virtual tour or a broker tour that's happening that you might be able to go on. If you're going to do that and it's during the day, make sure that you're replacing your lead gen time. Don't forget that part. There really are a lot. If you're having a hard time finding a way to preview homes, just ask your leadership for help or your productivity coach.
Ryan, if that guy reaches out to you with a referral in the next 3 months, you send him a reasonably priced set of jumper cables. Make sure they're red. Thank him for jump starting your career and for connecting you with them. Right?
Dang, I love that.
Like you, they're never going to forget that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now you know you need to drive around with your cables.
They're in the
Right.
trunk now.
You should have cables that are branded.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clearly you didn't have any, Mr. Lindsay. So here, I actually carry these for this reason.
Yeah.
Dude,
Thank
they'll
you for
never
that.
forget it.
Send them a handwritten note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to move. I'm really trying to keep us on track, and I think we're going to make it, Tim. I think I'm going to actually be on time today.
How dare you?
Scripts. So scripting is important. It's important to script so that when you're talking to someone and you're communicating with someone, if you don't script, then you're not listening to them. You're thinking of how you're going to react to the next thing that they say. And scripts allows you to be able to know what to say and listen. You're internalizing them and you're learning and honing in on your craft. So you should be scripting on lead generation, on undercovering motivations for your buyers and sellers. Why is that important to you? If you don't move within the next 3 months, what's that going to look like for you? For your buyers and your sellers, you should be trying to find out their motivation. It's super important. If they're like, if I find something, if I don't, okay, now I know I can spend this much time with you because I have other buyers that motivation looks like this. And you stay in communication with people that aren't motivated because people's motivation changes when you don't expect it to. So the database and staying in touch with people is because when their motivation changes, they have to remember that you're there and you've been providing them value the whole time. Scripting will help you with identifying objections because we need, some people will not tell you what their objections are. We have to pull that out of a lot of people because they don't want to hurt your feelings. They want to be controversial. They might want to get off the phone. They might think it's inappropriate to ask. So we need to be asking those leading questions to identify objections. And for closing deals, like we've learned a lot today about contract to close, and there's a lot of pieces to it. And there's a lot of areas where a deal can fall apart, and scripting will help you keep a deal together. Like I see that that's important to you, and this is why this is important to me. Where's our middle ground? Because I know I can make this a win-win for all of us. I'd like to see your folks get what they need. What's the most important thing to them? Speak in terms that customers understand. We have a lot of acronyms and initials and stuff like that. Customers and clients don't know them. So it's important that we speak their language. They don't understand contingencies and stuff like that. We have to use the language that they can understand. And then we have to make sure that they did understand them. But one of the most important parts of scripting is that it will build your confidence. When you can have an open communication with somebody about real estate, and you truly have the ability to just listen and hear them, and you can react to that in a way that's going to add them value, you're going to feel great about yourself, and it's going to want to make you make that next call. So find a script partner. Please, please, please find a script partner, and someone that will actually hold you accountable to the script. Not just calling and saying, what'd you guys have for supper last night? It's you jump into a call with a script. And it can just be 10 to 15 minutes a day, but the impact will be huge.
Susan, you made a great point. Gary said it at Family Reunion. Leaders do not have all the answers. They have all the questions, right? We just have to keep asking questions, because we're not here to sell them something. We're here to help them determine what success looks like for them and their loved ones, you know? And you also talked about, you know, and we talked to Jameson talked about the other day, yesterday, how he has an agent in his market center in Southern Mass that celebrates the no's, right? We know it's 19 no's to a yes nationally on average. And what we need to remember too is 95% of the no has nothing to do with us. It has to do with the circumstances that we haven't discovered yet because we haven't asked the next question.
True.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to park our ego and be curious and keep asking questions.
Yeah. And we don't want to be practicing on our customers and clients. We script so that we're not, man, that is a huge disservice. Don't practice on them.
Yeah. Yeah. They have cadavers at medical school for a reason. Because your friend's not willing to come in and lay down and hope for the best. God, I hope she studied chapter 12. This is a biggie.
Right?
This is a biggie. She's got to put my spleen back together. Like, yeah. So we practice on cadavers, right? We're doing practice with our cohorts behind the curtain, so we can go out, and we use the analogy all the time. Think of the hours spent by a professional sports team to prepare for, let's use the Patriots. God help us this year. The Patriots are going to spend how many hours over the course of a week, 168 hours total, an inordinate amount of time getting ready for 60 minutes of actual gameplay, right? Your kitchen table is your gameplay. That's when you're on the clock, and that's when we want to be at our best. So are we practicing, practice doesn't make perfect. I think Belichick actually said this, and he probably stole it. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? And
Absolutely.
Professionals practice to never get it wrong. Amateurs practice to get it right. Professionals practice to never get it wrong.
Yep.
Can we be flawless in our execution, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's okay not to know everything, but you have to be able to verbalize how you're going to get those answers for them.
Right.
And if you don't know, don't say.
Yeah. So source of the source.
I'm happy to get some more information on that for you. Let me do some research and call you by this time tomorrow. But then you got to call them tomorrow. Say what you're going to do and do what you're going to say.
Yeah. Follow up and follow through. Right.
Mhm.
And Susan, you said what we always say here is, without fail, I want you guys to get real good at not saying, and Susan just said it. Don't say, I don't know, I'll find out. Say, great question, Susan. I'll look into that for you. Right.
Yeah.
Because I told her she's wicked smart. She asked a wicked good question. I'm going to go find out. Right. We are the source of the source.
Yeah.
It's rare you're going to have the answer.
Absolutely.
You've got an army of people behind you with the answers and the resources.
100%. And validate that they have a great question. That's a really great question.
Yeah. Great question.
I really look forward to getting back to you on that.
If I'm about to pop off on that $2.6 million beach house that you were selling, and you're like, I don't know, I'll look into it, like Like, you know, all I'm thinking is she's coming back into the room with a scalpel and she's going to cut me open. This might not go well, right? Great question. Let me look into that for you, right? I think Seinfeld did a whole thing about the doctors have that little room in their office where they examine you, then they go in there and they're flipping through the book like, that's awful. I've never seen that before. I don't know what the hell that is, right? Like, we just got to lean into our resources, and we're never going to have all the answers. You're never going to have all the answers.
Yep.
But you are at the wicked smartest brokerage on the planet. So pay attention to that and lean into the resources, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So practice your scripts. There is a do not call registry. So please, if you don't know how to look into that, ask for help from your market center. The last time I heard it was like $42 per violation, but that may have gone up. Erin might know more on that. But
Oh, TCPA?
42,000.
42 grand, kid.
oh, 42,000. Oh,
Yeah.
42,000.
Yeah, Ryan Burns is like $42. I got $42. Let's
Yeah,
start making
I mean,
phone calls.
There's
We've
three
been doing it all
zeros
day,
after my
right?
note. There's 3 zeros after my note. Yeah, that's a
Yeah, it's a serious thing. There is a guide on the Facebook group. You know, the number one question that I get asked almost daily is how to register for the do not call registry. You're going to register as a salesperson. As Susan has mentioned to us today, we are salespeople. So your market center likely does not have its own account. We are all independent contractors as realtors, right? So you're going to register yourself. I literally get asked this every single day. So go on there, register as a salesperson, get access to it, use the do not call registry, honor it. Don't call anyone you're not supposed to. It's $42,000 for each violation.
Per violation. Yeah, do not call.gov. Do not
Plenty of
call.gov.
other people to call.
And
Yeah, call
the
the
other
people
half
you
of that.
know, and you'll be all set, right? Call
Yeah.
your friends and family and get referrals from them, and you're not even going to have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And people, here's the other thing too. If I call the Kenyon's house and John answers and he registered his cell phone from 1983, you know, unlike, you know, or his pager from New England Page back in the 80s, even if he hasn't registered his latest number, because it's not a catch-all, I'm also not going to get into a verbal arm wrestling match with John Kenyon about the fact that this particular number isn't on the registry, sir. As
Right.
soon as they claim that they are on the do not call list, our job is to say, I appreciate that. I'll update my notes. Mr. Kenyon, have a great day.
Yep.
We are off the phone. Unless you got 42,000 and you're feeling dangerous. Like,
Yeah, 'cause
amen,
the
sister.
broker's not
Rock
paying
on,
for that.
right? I
No,
would
the
rather
broker
do
doesn't
else.
pay that. We pay it as agents.
Oh, it's individuals. Yeah. I can tell you, if you're part of 463, Nathan Dickey's not showing up with his checkbook. He's going to show up with a lawn chair and a rack of beers and watch you get fined, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and I'll probably sit next to him and point and laugh.
Yep.
And our car might not start, Ryan, so
I'm
please
so
come with
sorry. I'm
cables.
going to take you off my list.
Yes.
Move on
Yeah.
to the
Yep.
next one.
I'll update my notes. Have a great day. And what Gary's getting to there is, you know, do your homework. If you are dialing for dollars, do your homework. More often than not, and this isn't hard and fast, but more often than not, people that get in trouble with these violations, and the way you can get in trouble with multiple violations in a 4-minute period is to be on a dialer. And a
Right.
lot of our resources that we're plugging our dialers into have done some homework for us, but they are not, if you read the fine print, they're not writing the check for you either.
Yeah.
So going through the process of making sure these people are not on do not call is important. And that seems like a lot of work. Why wouldn't I just call the people that I know and love and trust, Tim? You're making our point.
Yeah.
Quick question, just conversely, do you recommend that we put ourselves as individuals on do not call list so that we can vet incoming calls that are not in our contact list? Do you understand my thinking?
I never give someone a reason not to call me.
Yeah.
Never.
No.
I love a good sales call.
Yep. Tim, for Tim, it's a sport.
Yeah.
If you ever get the opportunity to watch him with a sales call, it's a good time. I'm telling you. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't know what the value in that for you as a salesperson would be.
I just had to run that by you. I agree.
Yeah, no, it's a fair question. I'm not sure what the value would be. I'd have to think about that and get back to you.
Hey, you
Great
know what?
question, Callie.
Script them.
We'll look into that
If
for you.
someone calls you and they're on a sales call, just practice your scripts on them. I mean, what do you have to lose?
Yep. Well, and you're gonna realize how good you guys are at what you're doing with question asking and how bad some of the salespeople are, right? Like the joke I make is the kid calling from like Cutco Knives, not to pick on them, they're friends of ours, but the kid calling from his cubicle at Cutco Knives, and you can hear his script blowing off the back of the cube because the air conditioner is going, and there's 9 million people sitting in this room. He's not going to do a needs analysis. He's trying to sell me a block of knives, right? There's no financial greatness tied to this for him. He makes $8 an hour. If I buy the whole knife set with the block, he gets a $5 kicker on Friday, right? He doesn't ask me if I have hands, if I eat meats. Like, he's done no needs analysis. He's just trying to shove some knives into a sale for me. So, like, to Erin's point, I will be like, hey, you know what you could have asked, right? They'll like political calls and sale calls. But honestly, that's an opportunity for us to really sharpen our knife, pun intended, right? We get to really work on our craft when we listen to other people not do it as well as us.
Yep.
So if you feel like we spend too much time scripting here, call Gary. Because we're not going to stop, and it's all to edify you guys in this industry, because it's all we have before we create a relationship with people. All we have is our reputation, right? And first impressions matter.
Yep.
And invariably, your first impression with your future client is probably going to be on the human batting machine we call the telephone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So lead generation, calling with scripts, this is all stuff that we're not going to do. But I know we've covered it a lot. I just want to, remind you, it's important to know your contracts. It's important for you to read them. It's important for you to understand them so that you give the best possible service. And any opportunity that you have to practice contracts with other agents in your office, do that. And if no one's doing that, then start a group and ask a seasoned agent or someone in your leadership to lead you on that. Would be my suggestion. You have command, you have resources in Connect and education that you can be looking for to help educate you on these things. And I believe in all of you guys. So congratulations for getting through all of Ignite and committing to doing that. If you ever need any help, I'm easy to find on Facebook, and I just wish you all the best.
She's on the do not call list though. So.
And I almost did it. It's 12:03 and I'm all done to wrap it up, but I am here if anybody has any questions or if anyone has anything they want to share.
If I had kept my mouth shut, you would have been well under 12, but that's an impossibility. So you get grace from the group, I believe.
Perfect.
And a quick reminder for everybody, we will be right back here tomorrow at 8:59. We're going to have our Market Center Tech Trainer, Robert Vincent, here. We're going to cover some Zoom, some Command, and some Facebook. And then he does have to escape at 10 o'clock for a local training, and Erin and I will stay after 10 just to put a bow on it. So if there's anything over the last 18 sessions, you're like, I'd like to dive a little bit deeper, I have a question about this, that, or the other thing, please bring those to us tomorrow so we can put a bow on this for you guys and get you on your way. And we really do appreciate your time. Susan couldn't have said it any better. I think for you to invest yourself, I think we had the math this morning, but I forget what it was, but it's 18 times 3. You guys have put a lot of hours in. And it's going to pay off. Just please take the strategy you've built and go execute. That's where we could miss out right now. If you don't glue those two pieces together, it would be all for naught.
Absolutely.
So we're getting a couple of questions. Just tomorrow, you're going to use the same link. So join us using the same link that you found us with today. Our next session is going to start for the region in May. I believe the first Monday in May is May 5th, actually.
No, I think it's May 3rd.
Oh, May 3rd.
Cinco de Drinko is Wednesday.
Oh, you're right. All right. So May 3rd, and then and it will run through till the end of the month. And I think that's all we have for today.
And there's
Thank
a link
you, guys.
to Susan had posted the link. If you can click on that link, copy and paste that link, or you can actually scan it with your phone. Please do go in and tell Gary that Susan crushed it like she always does. And again, we thank you guys for all your time this month. We'll see you tomorrow for some tech talk, and have a great day.
Yeah, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks so much. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome. Peace.
So much.